lot of people go through life doing things badly. Racing's important to men who do it well. When you're racing, it's life. Anything that happens before or after, it's just waiting.
Matt Williams got a brilliant start from the third row of the grid.
He's gone, he's hit him, he's straight off at the chase.
Half-second lead. Oh, with the sprint car in the background.
He has, oh, he's round on the last lap.
There's a massive accident.
Next to the inside, what a move, what a move.
Good evening and welcome to the 7th round of Automobilista Australia's Gt3 Series for 2020. If you were tuning in thinking you were going to be watching these cars go around the Shanghai International Circuit in China, you've obviously been living under a rock for a couple of days. There was a late-minute track change last Friday and China has been replaced with a Formula One track that is no longer on the Formula One calendar. That's right, it's Turkey's Istanbul Park Grand Prix circuit. One of the circuits that a lot of drivers in the server tonight are really liking the feel of, and a couple of commentators are looking a bit perplexed and thinking, why aren't we out there? Because it's such a fun track to drive. And one thing I think a lot of drivers can all agree on is that this circuit should never ever have been dropped from the Formula One calendar. But it did, and we're proud to revive it for a 60-minute, well, effectively what becomes a sprint race tonight, given the times that we're seeing. But nonetheless, we're certainly going to deliver another great GT3 race here in Automobilista Australia. My name's Steve DeVries. Thank you for tuning into Outworld Broadcasting's broadcast of the GT3 series this year for AMS Oz. And usually we've got 3 commentators total in the commentary box, but tonight it's just a pair. So it's a welcome to Michael Zalavari.
Good evening, Nether. Good evening, everyone at home. Yes, unfortunately, Bagsy has had to sit out tonight as he's feeling a bit unwell. But I feel like I might have enough energy for the two of us because I'm so excited that we're going to Istanbul Park. This is one of my favorite racetracks in the entire world. And when this got put up as the replacement ground for Shanghai, I was absolutely over the moon. So much so that I put the brand new AMS Oz GT3 permanent server to heavy usage and put something like 150 laps in it. And I'm not even racing tonight. That's how much I love this circuit. So I'm very excited for tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. I did the same. I did quite a number of laps, especially when we did the testing on Friday night to make sure this was all good to go. We were actually lapping in the Metal Morrows just to make sure that everything ran, the safety car came out and everything behaved itself as it should. But yes, it's a very popular choice, this track. I think the grid size is not the same sort of size that we've seen in the last few rounds. We're under 20 cars at the moment, but still it's a quality field and a field that should take like ducks to water, I think, once they get themselves up to speed with this circuit. It's not an easy circuit, and we'll have a look at the track map in just a few moments' time. But Michael, there's some really iconic. The most iconic part of this circuit is Turn 8, and I think everybody is sort of looking at this, going, "How do we attack this corner?"
Oh yeah, the Diabolica, as it was used to be called on the F1 broadcast, a 5 apex a left-hand corner that dips down and then rises back up to meet you, taken almost at 5th gear, almost flat out as well. That's one of the most iconic parts of this track and something that I think everyone sort of remembers from the Turkey Grand Prix. But there's so much else in this track as well. The kink on the back straight that's taken fully foot flat to the floor, the triple hairpin that brings you from that fast section onto the main straight, and the first corner that is an homage to the corkscrew at Laguna Seca or even turn 1 at Indianapolis, that diving left-hander. There's so much character and so much elevation in this circuit that really we've heard a lot of people in the practice server complaining about compromising their setups by trying to find more time at certain sectors. But this track has it all and has it all in spades, and it's just so much fun. It's so much fun.
Yeah, that's probably that's the one word I think everybody unanimously uses to describe it: fun. And I think people even like Brian Walsh has actually started saying recently, 10 minutes ago, he was actually starting to enjoy this track. So I mean, if anyone can get Brian Walsh to enjoy a track, I think we've done a pretty good job. We've actually just got the track map up. That's very high praise. The track map up there on your screen right now as we look at the onboard lap behind it. So about 150 or so meters shorter than what the Chinese circuit that it has replaced was. Couple less corners. The race distance remains the same, 60 minutes, estimated to be 28 to 32 laps. Now, the 32 laps we believe is where it's going to be, factoring in the pit stops and the times that we're seeing at the moment. That's the high side estimate. If we go green, it'll definitely be the high side estimate. No GT3 track records. First time we've ever been to this circuit. So, of course, a little bit of slice of history up for grabs for a number of drivers tonight, both in the race lap record and the qualifying lap record. So many different parts of this circuit, as you said, Michael, come from different parts of the world's race courses. So corners like turn 1, the sort of the plunge down the hill, similar to Laguna Seca, not as severe. They've obviously tried to replicate turn 8 in the reverse layout at Circuit of the Americas. This circuit was one of a trio that was designed around the same time. So Herman Tilke got this circuit, was the third in the queue. Shanghai was the second in the queue, and then the very first one that kick-started it all was, of course, Malaysia. And it's been Turkey and Malaysia that have found their way off the Formula One calendar, and somehow China remained.
I think there's maybe a few factors in how that's all sorted out, maybe money being one of the big ones. But it's really unfortunate because I think this track may be Herman Tilke's best racetrack, and it would only be edging out Sepang by just a little bit. And it's unfortunate that this track really doesn't get any use anymore. Had the Formula One Grand Prix from 2005 to 2011, has run a few rounds of DTM, had a round of the European Le Mans series as well. So there's precedent for these GT3 cars racing at this circuit. But unfortunately, once the Formula One left the circuit, it's fallen into a bit of disrepair. And now it's not used for racing at all, which is really unfortunate. It's a track that I think it's probably equal my favorite track in the world. So it's unfortunate that it's fallen on hard times and doesn't get the use that I think it deserves, because it is just such a fun, such a cool track.
Yeah, very sad to see that it only lived a short life in the Formula One world. I mean, 6 or 7 years is not very long, and obviously met the Formula One calendar with a lot of fanfare and actually became an instant favourite with a number of drivers very, very quickly. And there's been so many different things happen here over the years too. I mean, who can forget Vettel and Webber coming together at the bottom end of the circuit there at the chicane in the last couple of corners. That was the moment where Vettel, very easily on the broadcast saw that he made the crazy symbol in his ear, thinking that Webber was crazy. Plenty of other things we've seen go on here over the years as well, that it was in circulation. And we're just getting to the back end of the practice session. That's about 2 minutes before we finish up there. So it gives us a quick opportunity to go and have a look at what the point standings are coming into tonight. So on your screen there, Steve Bolger and Will Devenish, Lamborghini continuing to dominate after 6 rounds have been completed. We keep saying it's the car to have for some reason in this particular year. Every year there seems to be a different car that seems to get up to the pointy end of the field. Last year it was Brenton Foley's Viper, and he's in that car again for this season, but he finds himself third in the standings. It's starting to get away from those guys right now. So Foley and Zerus really are starting to lose touch with Bolger and Devenish at the top for honours in gold class. You could basically say that if Foley fails to win tonight, then it's pretty much going to be down to Bolger and Devenish for the final 2 races. Silver Cup runner Osrob, he's got a healthy margin at the moment over Matt Schwass, Lime Mitch and Luke Joyner. Look at that, all on 30 points, and that actually has gone to a count back in terms of race finishing positions to determine who is second, third and fourth in that one. Zach Ross with 28 points there as well. One of the fast men at the moment, Michael, Pete Savage, in the Benz that was previously occupied by Lewis Wedding, not on that table of drivers there, but has a nice slab of points after his podium finish at the previous round at Valencia.
Yeah, he's certainly one to watch tonight, currently sitting second on the practice timesheets. And I think that points to one of the reasons that Bolger and Devenish are so far ahead, and that's their consistency, not only with appearing in races, because we're missing a few of those top guys again tonight, notably Zerus and Wedding are sitting out tonight, but also their finishing position. So Bolger and Devenish, I think, have been on the podium every race, which is why they've been able to stretch their lead so far compared to the rest of the field. And it kind of goes to show the importance of consistency, not only in just being able to appear and to finish, but to finish well. And that's why they've been able to stretch out such a lead. So expect to see Peter, if he has a good run tonight, jump onto that graphic for next week. But with only 3 rounds left, it is starting to become a very much a 2-horse race at the top of the table.
Sure is. And it's a 2-horse race, not in just the World Series. Of course, there are the Sprint Series and the Endurance Championship ones to go as well. So different crowns for different drivers this year. We have a look at the team's points. And again, the Lamborghini team's well out in front. And it's almost a foregone conclusion that the Gravel Shed Racing team are probably going to take the team's championship in the World Series. All they need to do is finish have a pretty decent night out tonight compared to the Reading Crashers Racing guys, and the title will be theirs with a couple of rounds to go. So then that will be out of the equation.
Yeah, and again, it's just been consistency and weight of numbers. So 3 drivers each for Gravel Shed and Wedding Crashers, and most of them have appeared for every race we've had so far. So weight and numbers has really allowed them to stretch away. But keep an eye on Team Antara, Lou Simsport, with Peter Savage taking over that seat for Lewis Wedding. They're starting to come back in with some really good results. So that's going to be one to watch to see if maybe Pete can overtake both Foley and Cracker to overcome BC Racing for 3rd in the championship.
Yeah, we're going to watch that one with interest as well. And there is another ringer in the server tonight as well. Matt Williams is making his 2nd appearance, albeit in a different car. He's switched over to the Mercedes-powered AMG. Actually, that's not him in the pit lane. That's Pete Savage going along. But he's in a very similar liveried car to Pete Savage, just with the gold accents instead of the pink ones that you see there. As qualifying gets underway, we cycle through the field to pick up who our first driver on track is, and looks like it might be Ozrob. I mean, it looks like I'm having a couple of lag issues or something here. I'm not sure if that's us or if that's him having some dramas. He is the man that is first out at the moment, as we go back and see everyone filing out of pit lane. And it looks like the lag issues potentially maybe on Ozrob's side. It looked a bit weird as the car was just skewing across the track, which we did have that happening a bit earlier before the broadcast got underway. We were hoping that was just an issue on our side.
Fingers crossed that we get away with it tonight.
Yeah, we're hoping so. Now, Will Devonish just lights up a little bit out of the corner there. That's a corner he was actually struggling with a little bit in practice. Had a couple of moments, and looks like Luke Joyner's done the same behind. Just gassed it up out of that double left-hand corner turns 5 and 6.
Yeah, really easy to do because the track kind of drops and then opens up. So it's really encouraging you to wind the throttle in, but you do it too early and it just all falls apart. We've seen numerous people do that, and there's actually a lot of opportunities to do that around the circuit, which makes it very, very difficult to get a handle on. We'll just see, we've got Ozrob just about to start his first flyer, but we'll see if we can get one of the big guys to give us a bit of an onboard ride on their first lap. Who are we going to jump on board with?
Well, we'll jump on board with Pete Savage. We were pumping up his tyres a little bit earlier. He's just tucked in here behind Lime Mitch, who's a little bit further up the road. So coming into the final sequence of corners now, we're just trying to pick up the correct onboard camera. There it is. Michael, and here we go.
Yeah, crossing the start-finish line, very close to the exit of the final corner, so not a lot of chance to really drag down the main straight, and then braking at the 100 board to dive down into turn 1, that dropping left-hander. Really hard to get the apex there as the track falls away from you. Sweeping through turn 3, back up turn 2, back up the hill, and then braking at the 50 board for turn 3, which is really blind here, and it really just kind of slings you out, or you're hard on the brakes again, down into this right-hander second gear, and then back down the hill to where we saw Luke Joyner have difficulties before. Using a lot of curve there for Peter as he winds the throttle back on as the track opens out. Coming back up the hill here for turn 7, a really difficult corner as we hit the first sector mark, 41.6 for Peter. Braking at the 100 board, a little bit of a slide mid-corner as the track rises up and then again opens in its radius before we set ourselves for this multi-apex left-hander, the Diabolica. So Peter takes this in 4th gear, and he's riding the curve very hard on that first apex, and it stretches out a bit for this last one, so you can really wind the throttle back in as we go all over the exit curve. Now braking for turns 9 and 10. This very difficult uphill left-hander. It kind of bowls in the middle here. You've got to use all of that inside curve before slinging the car out over the right-hander on the exit there. Again, very much uphill. Now this is where the speed gets wound on through this flat-out kink down in the bowl and then back up over the hill. And it's this final little section left to go as Peter hits a 122.2 to the second sector, braking at the 150 board for this triple hairpin. Now you're fighting understeer here as Peter gets a little bit of oversteer through that first section, and then again hard on the brakes, getting the front of the car tipped around, and then this final one here, very early turn in for Peter as he runs all the way through to the exit curb, and he's going to cross the line and set his first lap in anger, a 51.5 to go to the top of the timesheets.
Very nice lap, despite the little bit of messiness in the last sector, just struggling to get the turn in right, as you pointed out, for that final sequence of corners. There are some corners like that last chicane where you just got to think about how you attack it. You've got to think about where you position your car relative to the next corner coming up, and they come up in such quick succession that you've really got to think about braking hard, turning hard left, setting yourself up to try and take that right-hander and then stay right, and then try and get a really good purchase on the final corner and maximise your front straight speed. So that's probably the most difficult sequence of corners to get right outside of turn 8. What was surprising, Michael, is when you look at this from a Formula 1 perspective, as we come through turn 8, all the Formula 1 cars would they wouldn't hit the curbs, but they would take a lot more road than what we can see here. We can see the rubber on the road is what Peter's trying to follow, but the Formula 1 cars really tried to stay as far away from those inside curbs as possible.
And they can do that because they have the luxury of all of that downforce, that aerodynamic force pushing the car down. And because they're so much lighter as well, they're a lot more nimble. So they can really use it almost like a speedway oval and just wind the speed in around the corner. Whereas the GT3 cars, they don't have that much downforce, especially at the front. So you're really having to use almost the curb in the way that the track shapes to pull the car around, and it's right at that verge of aerodynamic efficiency as well. So Peter was taking that at the top of 4th gear. When I was doing laps earlier in practice, I was taking that at 5th gear just because it kept the car a bit more stable. But you don't really have the luxury of having the front of the car rooted to the floor like you would in a Formula car.
No, certainly not.
As Peter goes quicker again, a 51.2 this time around. Wow, this is some serious pace. That's the fastest lap we've seen tonight so far.
That's the fastest lap across all the practice sessions that have been running since the server went up as well. So that is really spot on the pace, and that's actually better than what the best lap was by about 0.2 of a second. It was Steve Bolger who held a 51.4 as the quickest overall time from all those servers. And then Will Devenish wasn't too far behind. And we're just watching Steve Bolger on screen. He was up to about a quarter second on his own PB at Sector 1. Has lost all of that time to the Sector 2 marker. You can see John McDonald's out there now as well, just ahead of Steve Bolger. So that means that just about every runner has made it out onto track with the exception of Matt Williams. John actually didn't run very many laps at all in the practice server. That was up before. Bolger drops to 4th now as Lime Mitch goes quicker, and Will Devenish also surpasses him as well. So these BMWs were quietly rubbing their hands together. They were actually thinking that they might have a real shot at a race victory tonight.
Yeah, it seems that the BMW has the strength through the faster corners and also down the long straights. So Lime Mitch especially, very impressive, provisionally in 2nd place. He was putting in a few hours of practice through the week as well and was really challenging times of that top 4 that we've been so familiar with, the Peter Savage, Will Devenish, Steve Bolger, and Brenton Foley. So to see now Lime Mitch in that mix as well was a real surprise, but a welcome one to be sure.
Yeah, one of the quicker drivers in AMS Oz as well, does really well in Super 2, is a pretty handy wildcard in the Monster Energy Mustang in the Supercars main series as well. So he's definitely a quick peddler. Currently provisionally on 2nd row of the grid, and just a couple more drivers yet to set some times. So here's one of them about to set a time. This is Crack Up. Pretty handy time. 9th place so far, 54.45. We cycle through. We're waiting on some times from this man, Matt Williams. And this man who's about to set a time, he's borrowing a car. He's normally in the commentary box. He's actually not a bad steerer as well. In actual fact, during the week, he was within a second or so of Will Devenish's times. This is Hans Brunswick we're talking about here, Michael.
Yeah, bit of a surprise. Not a surprise to see Hans so far up, but it's great that he's getting into the racing as opposed to just in the commentary box. I'm a bit jealous. I'd like to be doing the same. But he's had some consistent pace through the practice sessions, not quite up with the front group, but as he comes across the line in the last of the Wedding Crashers Motorsports Lamborghinis, using a bit of exit road there, he's going to set a 53.8 to put himself 8th at the moment. I wouldn't be surprised to see him maybe jump up the grid a little bit more, or at least improve that time a little bit more before the session's out.
Yeah, he dropped a bunch of time in the final couple of corners. He did slide wide at turn 12 and then had to get purchase on it for turn 13 and 14. He was 1.6 seconds down to the second sector split and then dropped a full second in the last sector just by that little mistake. So that's a learning exercise. He'll tidy that up and then he'll get going again. Substituting for Gary Neville. So that's why he is in Gary Neville's car, if you're wondering at home.
Yeah, and it's so easy to do, to make a mistake in that final sequence of corners. Even just the braking for the first one, you're coming from the top of 6th gear all the way down into 2nd. And if you miss your braking point by 5 meters, 10 meters, all of a sudden you're 20 meters further down the road at the other end. So really, really difficult sequence of corners. And the one who's got it right so far has been Peter Savage, as he's about to start another string of hopefully fast laps.
Just seen Aaron Thomas go around on his out lap, so he'll just stay put, let John McDonald go through, and I'm not sure if he's going to exit back or no, he's going to try and get himself going again. So we're watching that one with interest. Lead of the two Bentleys is Brendan Ross, currently in 5th place. Brenton Foley looks like he's behind him on track at the moment, but is all the way down in 9th, and he's not going to make any times there by having an excursion across the grass. So too can be said for the gravel shed
Steve
Lamborghini
Bolger
behind him. That's Steve Bolger. Turmo off the road at turn 7, getting out of the way of these guys on some quick laps as well. Let's see how Brendan Ross tackles turn 8. Not as much curb as some of the other drivers that have been using, especially through the early part. You really don't need to use curb through the middle 2 parts of the corner, but just got to get close to it at the first part and the last part.
Because that last part is the one that really slings you down this straight, as we're watching Bolger break into the turn 9 and 10 complex. Just quickly, Bolger did improve on his last lap around, a 51.8 for him, but he's just been eclipsed by Lime Mitch again with a 51.6 for the BMW driver. So really impressive pace at the front of the field, but they're still half a second away from Peter Savage.
The man who headed the practice standings after the 60 minutes had elapsed before the broadcast commenced tonight was actually Will Devenish. He managed to get the better of Peter, but I don't think Peter had gone and done a qualifying run, whereas I think Will tends to try and pump one in toward the end of the session just to get himself in the zone for qualifying. He hasn't been able to replicate that though so far, Will Devenish. He's currently 4th on the timesheets. He's got enough time out there on track to get another 2 laps in if he can get to the. He'll get to the line probably with about 2.5 minutes remaining, I'd imagine. And then he'll have 2 flyers.
It'll be tight. It'll be very tight. 2 minutes is only just enough time. You don't really want to be making a mistake if you've got a 2-minute window to start your lap. A lot of the Lamborghini drivers, especially, I heard that Steve Bolger and Will Devenish took a long time to get to grips with the circuit. I think that's a sentiment shared by a lot of people. The fact that it's actually taken quite a while to understand the circuit and really find a setup that works and that gels. And maybe it's a case that Will just hasn't quite found it in qualifying yet. Yeah, it's a bit surprising to see him struggling so much, if I do say so myself. And I think that's a bit of a compliment to Will and his efficiency so far this season, as Peter's just set a purple first sector of 41.6. So he's going through turn 8 now, and he might even set a new benchmark by the end of the lap.
Devenish will get to the line actually with 2.25 minutes remaining. So you're right. If he makes a mistake on this lap, it's going to ruin it because it's a minute 50 lap around. So if he makes a terrible mistake, he won't have enough time to get going again. Let's actually pick up our current provisional pole sitter. Looking very, very nice out of the back chicane. Now through the kink. Lost a lot of time. He's not far off his time, but he was purple in the middle sector. Sorry, in the first sector. Middle sector is not terrible. Looks a little
very
bit
smooth.
Yeah, very smooth. Someone's knocked the bollard out from turn 12, and he carried that through. It's not going to have any impact on the performance. How much exit road does he use? About half. He'll get one more lap. And he's going to need it if he wants to. He's dropped 2 tenths in that last sector. He's got 4.75 tenths on Lime Mitch at the moment, though. Lime Mitch is about to set a time through the first sector in about 20 seconds, or actually less than 20 seconds. Where's Will Devonish on track compared to Lime Mitch? Will Devonish is up through turn 8 now. And his first sector was a 42.3, so it wasn't stellar.
Not by any means. That's 7 tenths away from the first sector by Peter Savage last lap around.
Lime Mitch, a tenth off his best. So this is pretty much going to be his last effort.
Steve Bolger is green to the first sector, just outside Peter Savage's first sector time. He's just put in a 41.7, so he'll be one to challenge that pole time, perhaps, as we come to 30 seconds remaining in this session.
All right, well, Will Devonish is in the final sequence of corners now. So what's this Lambo got in store? He said his first sector was a 42.3, his middle sector was a 40.6. So middle sector's on par with most of the other drivers, but he improves his time, still 8 tenths away from the pole time, but he gets to go again. So that's the most important thing out of that equation. Lime Mitch is only a tenth and a little bit away from his own PB, so not looking like he's going to threaten Pete Savage's pole time for tonight, unless he can really wrangle it here. But Bolger behind him is the one we'll pay with interest. There he is in back a shot.
Ooh, a little bit of a pinch to the front wheel.
And Lime Mitch has really cut that last corner as well. So if he improves his time, it'll probably end up being deleted, but he doesn't. So Lime Mitch does not improve. Steve Bolger to the line. Clock is continuing to tick. He goes to P2. He goes to P2. Very, very nice job by Steve Bolger.
It was 0.08 of a second separating him from Lime Mitch, so very close for the two of them. But now we get to see what Will Devonish has got in store. 4 tenths up on his PB to the first sector.
Yeah, he found some time, so he's found a lot of time. So 4 tenths will vault him up one spot at the bare minimum. He'll need to find some more than that to get onto the front row. Down the hill into the turn 9-10 complex. Second sector split will come up in about 5 or so seconds. What has this number 15 Lamborghini got for us? He's lost a little bit of time, so he's lost about a tenth of what he was up on. That's not going to be enough to move him out of P4 if he can't find anything more in this last couple of sequence of corners. Also just keeping an eye on a couple of other drivers. Steve Burko is still out there as well, P11 currently, and just crossing the line recently was Cracker for P13. So this is the second last car to get to the line. So the last car to get to the line, the second last car's already gone through. He improves to P3. So basically, Will just swaps himself from one side of the grid to the other. And look at the deficit. It wasn't very much in the end at all. 4 thousandths of a second between third and fourth. Still a pretty good starting position for all those guys, though.
Yeah, the difference between Will's time and Lime Mitch's time pretty much all came in the middle sector. A 40.6 plays a 41.1. So Will lost a little bit in the first and last sectors compared to Lime Mitch, but just did enough in the middle sector. And that is qualifying done and dusted. So congratulations to Peter Savage. Pole position with a 51.2, an absolutely astonishing lap to head the field by about 3 tenths of a second.
And he had a nice margin in the end too, didn't he? 4 tenths, nearly 4 tenths of a second.
Yeah, very nice. And that really emphasizes what you were saying earlier about tonight being a real sprint race. If we see lap times like that throughout the full race, it is going to be an absolute madhouse.
I don't think we'll see the 51s come out. It'd be very rare to see a 51 performed. I think the pace is more likely to be in a mid 52s to the sort of mid 53s. I think that's what the sort of race pace you're going to need to be able to maintain consistently. But consistency here is a very, very big thing, and it's a very big thing to get right. So we're hoping that some of the drivers that have at the pointy end of the field have got that in spades and they can continue to replicate that. But if they don't, then there's a couple of quick guys there that just might upset the apple cart. You know, Lime Mitch and Aaron Thomas, those two BMWs are in the top 6. So that top 6 is actually comprised of 3 Lamborghinis, 2 BMWs and a Benz.
2 Lamborghinis and
2 Lamborghinis. Oh, no, sorry, and Foley. I forgot Foley's not in a Lamborghini. He's in a Viper. Sorry, my bad.
Yeah.
That's definitely my bad.
No, but you're right though. The Lamborghinis are looking like a team to beat, and also the 2 BMWs, a bit of a surprise packet. But it's going to be really interesting to see how they get on for the race today. Big qualifying result from Lime Mitch.
Yeah, absolutely. I second that completely. Now, while we've got a little bit of downtime, while the warm-up session is running, in actual fact, Lewis Wedding is down there, I wouldn't say reading them the riot act at the moment, but he's laying down the law as to what he looks for and what he's going to be keeping an eye on come this race. A couple of little promotional items for some events coming up and some series coming up in the next half of 2020. So first and foremost, the Gt3 Sprint Series. That's what continues on after the World Series is over. Only 2 more races to go after tonight, that being Monza and Watkins Glen. And the World Series will be over by the 30th of June. Commencing second half of 2020, it was originally going to be a 5-race series. It's now a 6-race series. Each night, it's a pair of 30-minute sprint races, still maintaining the Gold and Silver Cup class format. And like the World Series, there is an individual championship honours for the champion of that series, and all the combined scoring goes towards the overall GT3 champion for the year. So you can sort of be in that top 3 over the course of the year across all the series that are being run, and positions yourself as your overall GT3 champion for the year. The most important thing since the last time we advertised this at the end of last year is the tracks. So the track selection is there on your screen. So have a look at this, Michael. The 2 Australian tracks in there, the Bend Motorsport Park, which of course was designed with GT racing in mind and endurance racing in mind. Phillip Island, that's had its fair share of appearances by the Australian GT Championship. They actually cancelled their round this year pre-COVID. But we have seen, especially at Island Magic, some 1-hour endurance races there with trophy class cars, similar in GT3 machinery. Suzuka, which we've been to before in GT3 competition. Sakhir in Bahrain, that's a new one. First time we're going to be going there. Okayama, we have not been there before either. And then Laguna Seca, we had a season finale there in the very first year of GT3, the very first season of GT3 actually as well. And a couple of night races or dusk races are going to be in there as well. So I think one of the ones that the series admin for this one, Mike Coulston's really looking forward to is Sakhir Under Lights.
Yeah, that is something absolutely special, whether that be F1 or WEC or any sort of series around the world. I think the Bahrain circuit as well is extremely underrated in terms of its worldwide sort of stature because of where it's located and sort of a stereotype of poor crowds and that sort of stuff. But the racing it produces is going to be fantastic. So GT3 cars under lights at Bahrain is going to be really cool. But I'm intrigued to see Okayama. It's not a circuit I'm all that familiar with, even with my knowledge of GT racing. So that's one of the lesser known Japanese circuits. So I'm really intrigued to see what happens there.
Yeah, definitely one. I think we've had a test race there at one stage with the Formula One series that we'd run previously, just to get up to speed on things. But Okayama will definitely a bit of a unique challenge. The second series that is getting up and running in the second half of this year is the Porsche Cup. So registrations for this one are currently open, and the series is going to be starting soon. Would you believe within a week of putting this up, we already have 26 registered drivers, and there's still room for some more. So this is a little bit of a similar vein to what we used to run in 2018 and early 2019. The same cars, liveries are obviously able to be tailored for each individual driver. Back then we used to have a pair of sprint races on one night, and then on alternating nights it was a longer endurance format. This time around it's going to be a 40k sprint race and a 100k longer race with a pit stop on the same night. And there are 8 rounds in total. 7 of those tracks are decided. They will not be revealed until a little bit later on. But the 8th track is by driver vote, and then we'll be putting up a poll once the suitability has been assessed, and we'll then have ourselves an 8-race calendar. Michael, you've put your hand up to commentate this one, and I can see why.
Oh, man. Okay, so first off, I absolutely love Porsches. They're my favorite type of car, and the Porsche Carrera Cup series, just in general, is one of the best breeding ground for single make races just anywhere around the world. And the idea of commentating a Carrera Cup series or a Porsche Super Cup series is just awesome. I can't believe you guys are putting it together, and it's so quick. It's so popular as well. I can't believe how much the registrations have picked up. The tracks that people have been submitting have been really, really interesting. I think we've seen, like, you put in Oschersleben in Germany. There's all Salzburgring, Monza, Road Atlanta, and I put in Brno, which is another one of my favorite circuits. So the chance to run at any of those circuits is going to be awesome. And already the liveries have been cool. There's a real buzz around this series, so I'm super excited to have a look at what happens there.
And I think the reason this series came about is because of a few people's desire to drive more rear-wheel drive cars. Of course, the TCAC series is a all-wheel drive series. You've got the TCR Roz series, which is the front-wheel drive series. And a number of drivers were saying, we want to drive something that's more rear-wheel drive. I'd like to get the back out. So that's why the Porsches have been revived after a year or more on the shelf, essentially. So we're definitely looking forward to that one. I'm even getting my racing boots on for that one. I actually finished in the top 3 when the Porsche Cup ran the first time we did it in late 2018, early 2019. So I'm looking forward to that one. And if you haven't seen some of the racing from back then, go and check out Stairs' YouTube channel, because he's got all those races, and some of them were absolutely fantastic. Plenty of side-by-side action. You are not going to be disappointed. And with a field of 26 or more cars, this is going to be a really, really good series for the second half of this year.
Does that mean I have to learn how to stream and host broadcasts as well?
We can work on that. we can work on that. I'm not sure who's getting into the commentary box for that one. I think Lewis is running the series, might jump in and run that show as well. So there might be 2 of you might actually get to share a box with Lewis himself.
That'd be great fun. We've done that once before when I tried my hand at commentating on TDC. So it'd be great to jump in the box with Lewis again.
Well, we did say if you want to check out what happened in Porsche Cup last time, go and see the streams over on Stairs' YouTube channel. But speaking of Stairs, he's going to be back in the commentary box as well, but it's for the ARW Season 9. The boys are back, and this season is a little bit unique as well. This season starts tomorrow night, and it's the British Super Tourers. Everybody remembers the Super Tourer era from 95, 96, 97, 98, when the world went absolutely crazy and the development of these cars went through the roof. All these different manufacturers came in. We even saw 2 Bathurst 1000s in those couple of those years, because they had the different regulations, and they had the Super Tourers running as well. Usually in ARW, it's a case of everybody votes on tracks and they all get voted in. This season, it's the first time the boys have replicated an actual factual calendar from an era. So they've actually taken, I think it's BTCC from 1997 or 1998. I can't remember which year it is now. But all those tracks and those layouts. So Silverstone, Thruxton, Knock Hill,
Croft.
Croft's not in there, but that wasn't in that particular series. But all those ones that you would have seen happen back in that era, they've decided to do. Point structure's a little bit different, qualifying structure's a little bit different, but we're getting pretty close to replicating a season. So Bagsy and myself are going to be jumping into our respective cars for that one. Bagsy's got the Vauxhall Vectra. I've decided to go with the Nissan Primera, which here in Australia was actually the Nissan Pulsar. You can see a couple of cars there. Brenton Foley, who's GT3 racer, has decided to pick up the BMW. So too Xeris is not here tonight. He's decided to pick up the BMW as well. So that is over on the Apex Rear Wing YouTube channel starting tomorrow night. Now, 7:30 Eastern is the start time for the practice server. You'll probably expect the live stream to go up, something similar to what you saw tonight. So around the 8:30, 8:45 Eastern Standard Time, the YouTube stream will become live, and you'll be able to tune in for that one. So good luck to Stairs, good luck to Madbird. Madbird's jumping back into the commentary box for that one. So good luck to the boys putting that one together tomorrow night. Certainly looks like it's going to be a great 10 race season.
Oh man, I might have to tune in and watch that because I think the Toka Touring Cars game back in 1998. I think that was my first like circuit racing game. So these cars, the Primera, the BMW, the Vauxhall Vectra, the Volvo S40. I've still got a poster of the Bathurst winning Volvo S40 sitting just behind me right now. Actually, so I am just seeing that. I've got to watch that. That's going to be awesome.
There's actually a livery coming up in the supercars next week, I think, from Luke Rosella that sort of matches a very similar livery to that. I'm not sure if it's the S40 or if it's the 240T, but there's definitely some retro livery being paid homage to in a supercars livery coming up on the stream that will be on this channel next Thursday night. So if you're a fan of all things retro, be sure to tune in for that one as well.
Nether, you can't say things like that to me. You just can't do it. You can't get me that excited. We still got an hour-long race to commentate tonight. You can't get me that excited.
You're so easy to wind up, Michael. I'm sorry if I'm doing this to you. It's so easy to wind up. We'll go over and take a look at what's going on in the warm-up session at the moment. The drivers' briefing has ended. They reset the warm-up session to get everybody a chance to get out and practice pit-ins and running around this fine circuit. Let's see who's decided to take the bait with coming in for a practice stop. Now, Noah Turres, I've just noticed, has posted a time there. He was a late entry into the server. I think that he was in earlier and then dropped out, didn't make qualifying. So unfortunately for him, he's going to end up with a rear grid start. And Steve Bolger takes the opportunity to come in for a stop in what should be... Oh, he just gave the wall a bit of a clout there on the way in. But essentially what should be a one-stop race... You only got to come into the pit stops once.
Yeah, and people would need to be really careful of that pit entry because as we saw from Bolger there, just giving it a tap will give you some aerodynamic damage. And if you're not paying attention, you don't see that, it might cause a longer pit stop having to repair that because you can get away with a little bit of aero damage here. The only real big loaded corner that you need to worry about aero on is that monster turn 8, but you can kind of get through it with a bit of decent throttle control. So it's going to be you have to be vigilant on the entry to pit lane to not screw up your pit strategy by having a tap on the wall there.
Got to be careful where the pit lane line comes up as well. I haven't been able to quite get my handle on where exactly it is, but if it looks anything like what's on the racetrack, it's going to be somewhere close to where the start-finish line is too. So that means you will have actually ticked over to another lap by the time you come into the pit lane, which is very important when we're looking at it from a live timing perspective, seeing what the pit lane times are for the out laps and the in laps. That means the in lap is probably going to be a lap time very similar to a normal flying lap, and then your out lap has essentially got all of the pit lane time tacked onto it.
Yeah, similar situation to Bathurst. So hopefully we don't see a callback to, I think it was Liam Spencer, who played that brilliant strategy call and then got murdered by the game for it. So hopefully we don't see that. I think that might be something that people have to be aware of, that maybe if a safety car comes out, you could get hurt if you stay out on track. And let's not forget as well that the inside line for the pit entry actually cuts off that final corner, so you might even see quicker final sector times as you enter the pits.
Yeah, potentially. You're not wrong there either, that we might see, maybe a half a second or so lopped off an in-lap time as a result, as the game gets everybody ready to go. Just coming back to that point about the safety car as well, if it does come out, and we do have a situation like that as well, that's why Lewis Wedding is live stewarding tonight and for the remainder of the series, he will be putting everybody in the correct spot. So he'll be advising all the drivers to do what he tells them to do, not what the game tells them to do. So that will then mean if a Liam Spencer situation was to arise again, we would not have to worry about it because Lewis would tell him where to be, the penalty comes up, and Lewis would effectively wipe the penalty. I mean, you wouldn't get a penalty if you were caught trying to come into pit lane and caught speeding, or you won't get penalised if you're out of position at the restart because he's directed you to be there. He'll be clearing it. So we pray it doesn't happen. But you're right, that was an absolute shame when that happened. It was a brilliant strategy call, but for some reason the game did what it did and put him at that particular point in the fields. But we've done our best to try and resolve that moving forward. Waiting on a couple of drivers to get themselves into grid spots here. Looks like everybody's in position. And let's have a look at this field as the HSV Camaro safety car leads us around on the formation lap, Michael.
So we've got an 18-car grid tonight, so it's still very healthy numbers for this GT series, and we're led off tonight by Peter Savage in the Team Antara by Loose Sim Sport AMG, followed by current series leader Steve Bolger in the first of the Gravel Shed Racing Lamborghinis. His main competition for that series, the GT3 World Series, is Will Devenish out of third position, snatching third very late on with the last lap of the session in the Wedding Crashers Lamborghini by 0.008 of a second over Liam Mitch, which qualifying in fourth is very impressive from the Matt Harvey Repair and Tune BMW driver. Fifth place is last season's champion Brenton Foley in the BC Racing Viper, and he'll have Aaron Thomas for company on the third row of the grid and the second of the MHRT BMWs. First of the Bentleys is Brenton Ross out of seventh place, and then it is Ozrob in the second of the Gravel Shed Racing Lamborghinis out of eighth. Leading the Silver Cup is Ozrob as well, so that's an important note to keep tabs on during the race. Ninth place will be Hans Brunswick in the Glenn Miles Wedding Crashers Motorsport Lamborghini, taking that one on for this evening. And then he shares row 5 with Termo in the R Motorsport Aston Martin. 11th place is Steve Burko in the only Lexus, the Rolling Rods Redemption Lexus. And then Luke Joyner in the third of the Wedding Crashers Motorsport Lamborghinis out of 12th. Cracker is the second of the Vipers in 13th in the BC Racing Johnny Walker sponsored Viper. And then it's Matt Williams in the Team Antara by Loose Sim Sport Ringer car out of 14th. It will be Wayne Whitmore in the 15th position, the second of the Bentleys. And then the final Wedding Crashers Lamborghini, Brian Walsh out of 16th. The rear of the grid is John McDonald in the turn right to go left motorsports Ferrari. And then Noah Taro, who's made it back into the session, missing qualifying in the Nismo Nissan GTR. But good to see him on the grid, and fingers crossed he's able to get through the race tonight without any internet issues that have been plaguing the Taro family. So 18 runners for this 60-minute hit out at Interlagos, round 7 of the GT3 World Challenge. We're about to get underway.
We sure are. They're already lining up a long way back. They were lining up side by side halfway around the formation lap, so that will be per direction from Lewis Wedding, I believe, as we wait for the safety car to enter pit lane. Now, the tricky part here is going to be getting round this final corner. The control line comes up very, very quickly, so I believe Lewis is going to be waiting for everybody to get onto the main straight before the pack is released. And the line's about to come up right about now. Looks like everybody's on the main straight, and we are about to go green flag racing for 60 minutes. The counter has started, and I believe they're waiting till they get to the end of the pit boxes here before they hit the go button. And here we go. Off into turn 1 we sail. Pete manages to hang on to his advantage for the opening corner. Already Lime Mitch is starting to challenge Will Devenish through the opening couple sequence of corners. Foley's trying to go with them, and then there's a little bit of a gap. It looks like Aaron Thomas missed the start and has already dropped a couple of car lengths. Will Devenish prevails for the minute. Now it's through this little section of the racetrack where it's really one by one. Foley's made a mistake. He's dropped a little bit of time to this leading group of 4 who are, 3 of them are nose to tail. Pete Savage is doing his best to try and bugger off into the distance really quick. Oh, there's a bit of a moment for Termo. Termo's around off of turn 6. So now I'm not sure if he got helped, but let's go back and have a bit of a look on the replay and see if we can spot there, because that's dropped him all the way to the back of this field. And this is part of the danger, what happens when you get caught in the mid-pack. So thought about a look at the inside there, and looks like he may have done this all on his own. And indeed he has. He's just lit it up a little bit, got a little bit of a tank slapper on coming out of turn 6. So unfortunately, no help for him. That was all on his own.
Yeah, very easy to do the early laps of the race. We've seen Will Devenish do something similar at Spielberg, I think, from the head of the field. So cold tyres, cold mind, very easy to do, especially on a corner that opens out like that. As you made mention, that opening group of 4 or 5 cars have really started to distance themselves from the rest of the field. And now it's Foley and Liam Mitch trying to look at the rear of those Lamborghinis. They all file in to the last sequence of corners. still all very tight through that section there. We've actually got Hans Brunswick in the background making a move on Ozrob, but Ozrob has the defensive position, does very well to hold the apex there, forces.
But look at the
Hans
speed.
back
Look
onto
at the drive off the final corner for Brunswick though. He's really got his skates on, got a much better exit. He's going to be careful here because Ozrob's had a few little internet dramas, and Ozrob's going to send it. And that's good and smart driving just to open the steering there. Oh, and there's a collision behind. What a slide from Matt Williams. He somehow managed to hang on to that one. Looked like he may have been helped through that corner, but big fistfuls at opposite lock, fighting there with Noah Turra. There's what we can see by Ozrob having some internet dramas. Let's have a look at that slide for Matt Williams. So he was caught up here behind Joyner and Burko as they come down the main straight. Decided to go with Luke Joyner. And late move. Huge
send.
Massive send. Licked it, stamped it, and sent it, and skated out the other side somehow and managed to hang on to it. Great driving.
I don't know how he managed to hold that in one piece. Must have the TC turned up to 11 there. He managed to hold on. He's dropped a few positions because of that.
Still up one from where he started, though.
It must have had a really impressive start then. I think we missed that in the melee at the beginning as we were focusing on this front group. But it looks like Savage has tried to distance himself.
He had a little bit of a moment there through the last part of turn 8 as well, and John McDonald's going to pounce on him. So he's been one of those, over the course of time, Matt Williams, we always used to refer to him as one of the perennial place getters on lap 1. He always seemed to make up an awful amount of positions and somehow managed to hold it, but he's not having a really good fist of it on this particular occasion. And flashing the lights, I'm not sure if he's a bit upset with something that John McDonald did, but he was completely off the road. Now Cracker's going to line up to have a bit of a go at him coming into the final corner if he doesn't cover this off. Now Cracker actually starts to think better of it here. This is broken into these distinct battle groups that we've seen in a couple of races across GT3 in the last sort of 12 months, hasn't it, Michael? We've seen this at Zandvoort where it just went off and it all broke into a whole bunch of battle groups. We've seen it earlier this year as well.
Yeah, and we've seen it, I think, at Donington as well. We saw a bunch of little battle groups throughout the pack. And you can already see that now. You've got that sort of top 5 group, which is trying to just drop Brenton Foley off as he had a big lock-up into the first corner. And then there's kind of Aaron Thomas already in no man's land in 6th place. And then you got Ross, Ozrob, Brunswick in a little bit of their own space. And then this next group from Luke Joyner in 10th down to Burko. And then John McDonald heading up that next group. So everyone's kind of split off into their own little distinct groups, but as the race progresses, we might see tire drop off, we might see fuel management. I think the front right tire here gets murdered, especially by turn 8, as the leaders are about to come through it now. You can imagine the sort of load that goes through that tire and how much you have to kind of baby it around the rest of the lap. So we might see those who are a bit kinder on the tires be able to push a bit harder as we get towards the end of the race.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. That front tyre is going to cop an absolute pounding. Probably also the rear right tyre won't be far behind it, as there are some long loaded corners, not so much also on the front right, but also in the traction zones as well, especially through, say, turn 5 and 6, trying to find the right bit of time to put that power down as it transfers to the rear end of all these cars. So that's what's inducing some of these other cars to spin as well. You try and gas it up too early, and we've seen that in practice around the car goes.
I was just keeping an eye on Brendan Ross and Ozrob. They almost went side by side through the fast end here, and Ozrob's going to dive to the defensive line into that last group of corners, and does a very good job of it, actually. Kind of lops Ross off the back, but he's run a little wide in the second one, which might compromise his run onto the back straight, the main straight rather. So keep an eye. It's a little difficult to see with this long throw camera, which is an awesome shot, but it's difficult to see where that battle pack is as they come into turn 1. It looks like Ozrob's done enough to just hold it for the moment.
Yeah, got a very good exit out of the final corner. I must say, I'm not sure whether his approach to turn 13, which is the the right hander where the pit lane entry is, if that's his normal line, sort of going a bit deeper, trying to carry a little bit more speed, whereas the other drivers behind him are not taking as much road. They're trying to compromise that line slightly to set themselves up for a better exit onto the main straight, which we were talking about at the head of the broadcast, that setting yourself up. Now Rossi has had a moment here. Brunswick's going to pounce. He was right there under the wheel, under the rear wing of that Bentley, but for the moment decides no, it's not time to pull the trigger just yet. Ross is just struggling a little bit here as Ozrob tries to kick away. Then back to this other battle pack that Luke Joyner is heading up, and this has started to get a little bit closer again. Noah Tara is really starting to apply the blowtorch to the back of this Lambo in the Nissan. Now, there are 4 Wedding Crashers Motorsport cars tonight, but only 3 are eligible for scoring on the team's points side of the equation, and one of them's slow at the moment. Now, is that
Will Devenish?
Is that Devenish or is it Brian Walt? What's going on here?
It says Devenish.
It's Devenish. Something's wrong with Will Devenish's car. What on earth is going on here? He's been going slowly for a while. I'm wondering if he's got some sort of trouble with his wheel or something with his rig. The car looks like it's going along okay. This has huge championship implications if he is not up to pace. Something has not gone well for that Lamborghini.
And it's been as far back as turn 7 that things have been going, that the pace has gone out of that car. I have
He's
no
crawling.
idea. Yeah, what it could be. It's stuck at 100 and...
He's out. He's done.
It's stick.
Big moment in this motor race. Will Devenish will not stand on the podium tonight. That is a huge free kick to the championship leader, Steve Bolger, if he can keep it on the black stuff tonight. Well, a margin coming into tonight was 135 points, plays 112.
23. It was 23 points, and it's 25 points for a win, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. So Bolger, if he wins tonight, could put the championship almost to bed.
Beyond doubt, yeah.
Wow, what a development. Whew.
That is a huge development and not something we were expecting this early in the race. So you're right, Michael. This is prime opportunity for Steve Bolger to seize this World Championship by the balls and basically say, unless he doesn't finish the next 2 races, it's almost his in the bag. We've always been very, very fortunate for GT3 for the last 4 or 5 seasons that we've gone down to the Foley sideways. That's nothing new.
No, that was mega sideways. I was for sure he was around there as he came out of turn 8. Just caught a little bit of grass on the inside and somehow managed to ride it. But yeah, you're absolutely correct. We normally see a last race mad finish for the championship, but Bolger is in prime position here, and this could be the moment that he takes his first championship in AMS Oz. Just absolutely puts it to bed, because with Will Devenish out, it would take something astronomical to go wrong for Bolger should he finish well with this race.
Well,
man, what a development.
A huge development. Well, in actual fact, he's really just got to keep it on the black stuff. He really doesn't have to do too much. A second place finish would still give him a nice chunk of points. He'd give him 20 points. It would make it very, very difficult. Obviously, the more points that he has in the bank and the further ahead in terms of race victories he is over Will with 2 rounds to go, means that if he does have a bad one next round, for example, and he doesn't finish the race, then he's got a lot more of a buffer than he does right now, or whatever he would finish tonight. But it's not over yet. There's still a long way to go, but I'm not sure what the right word for it is here. It's taken the sting out of the wind out of the sails of this a little bit.
Yeah, you can say that again.
We still take nothing away from the man who's in front at the moment, but we were certainly looking forward to seeing what Will could do to try and challenge for a race victory tonight. The important thing too, though, is the server that's being hosted is actually on Will's at Will's house. So this is not an internet disconnect by any stretch of the imagination. I think this is something that's gone wrong with the hardware in his sim racing rig. I'll wait to see if I can get something through from him in the next little bit, but if that's the case, he's going to really be worried. I would imagine that something's broken and he doesn't know what the hell it is just yet.
Yeah, I haven't heard throughout the week any sort of issues from Will in terms of hardware or any sort of force feedback issues or anything like that. I heard a little bit earlier tonight Peter was having a bit of a struggle with some game crashing issues, but that seemed to be rectified once he reset his computer. So it's a big... I honestly have no clue what that could have been, because it looked like the throttle almost got stuck at a certain percentage. It was just stuck at 110 k's and just didn't move. So yeah, really odd. But in the meantime, we have 48 minutes left of this race at Istanbul Park. There's still a battle for tonight's race honors. The front 4 have separated themselves by a little bit. It's about a second between each of them now, with Thomas just on the back of that group as well. And both Hans and Ozrob have managed to process through Brendan Ross for 6th and 7th respectively. And Noah Tara so far, performance of the race, up 9 positions from his back of the field start into 9th.
Yes, he's done pretty well to move all the way from the back of the grid as well. But Noah Tara, again, one of the very quick pedalers that we've seen in AMS Aussie. No slouch in Super 2. And we've seen what he can do in a GT3 car. Last year at Jerez was probably his one race that he probably would have liked to have won, given where he started. But he's certainly done very well to move up 9 spots from the back of the grid. Now, the next man for him, as you rightly pointed out, is Brendan Ross, who's doing his best to try and hang on to Osrob and Hans Brunswick here. And you can see that Noah Tara is he's slowly starting to take out some of the advantage here over Rossi. Let's look at the lap times comparatively. Not on the last lap. It was a 55.6 versus a 54 flat.
Which is actually Brendan Ross' best lap of the race so far, that 54 flat. So yeah, it might have just been one of those things. I think Tara might have just passed Burko on that last lap around as well. In fact, they had pretty close lap times. So yeah, good to see that the Nissan is proving to be a competitive car, but he's quite a fair way. It's at 11 seconds between Tara and Ross, so already quite a gap.
And Steve Burko's doing pretty well to hang on to the back of Noah Tara for the last spot inside the top 10 as well. That Lexus is a little bit underpowered. He was really worried that this car was going to get absolutely destroyed all over this circuit. But hanging on to the Nissan's no mean feat. The Nissan itself is actually pretty quick.
Very, very strong in a straight line is the Nissan. So yeah, good to see Burko putting in some good times, and I hope that continues through for the rest of the race, actually.
Let's see what he does this time around, actually. He does his best lap, 54.6, and he goes along with Taro, who did a 55.4.
Oh, wow.
A little bit of a lock-up going into the final corner there the first corner there for the Nissan as well.
This might be one of those little battles to keep an eye on throughout the race and see how these two get on.
This is
we've got a yellow flag in this sector, and Hans is around at turn 4, yeah.
All right, so he's had a bit of a moment there, so that drops him off the back of Osrob. It actually lets Brendan Ross through in the Bentley as well. So a moment for our fellow commentator, Hans Brunswick, coming up and over the rise here. What's he done here? Through turn 3 and then turn 4 is the downhill right-hander. Oh, under braking and went. Oh, and that's a big hit actually as well. So under braking and then just steered the wrong way. I'd imagine he's probably tried to steer to thinking that the car's going to pitch the other way. But that's an unusual direction to go there under braking.
I think that corner is actually quite difficult because it's blind on the entry and it rises, and then just as you want to brake is where it starts to tip down. So if you're still turning when you hit the brakes, it can just lock up the rears. And I think he's just been a bit too exuberant there. Maybe saw the Osrob just ahead of him had a bit of a moment and tried a little too hard, and that's kind of spun him into the wall there. But it is, a really unusual accident, and that's actually brought that Tara-Burko battle onto his rear just by about 3 seconds. So we were saying that the gap between Tara and Rossi was about 11 seconds. Well, now there's a bit of a stepping stone for Tara to chase if he wants to get up to that battle. Oh, battle for third position is on now as well between Lime Mitch and Foley.
So Foley's found a little bit of pace in all of this as well now. What was his last lap around?
A 53.4 versus a 54 flat for Lime Mitch.
So he started to get his skates on. In actual fact, I think that's Foley's best lap of the race. So his best lap's a 53.1, so it wasn't too far off his quickest lap. Lime Mitch is just starting to struggle a little bit here. Just a little mistake there at the top of turn 4, and then they drop down through 5 and 6. So there's Pete Savage, there's the lead up, there's Steve Bolger in second place. BMW's now 3rd and 5th, but one being pressured by the current defending GT3 champion in Brenton Foley. Getting word through confirming our suspicions that it was a hardware-related issue for Will Devenish's sim rig. The buttons on the steering wheel that obviously control functions such as lights and pit sequences and all that sort of stuff just completely stopped working for some weird reason or another, and he hasn't been able to continue. So of course, if you can't come into the pit stops and do a pit sequence and do things that you need to do, that's it's not going to work out particularly well for you.
Nah, not in a race like this. Oh, we've had Noah Tara disconnect, I think.
Yeah, that looks like it's a disconnect to me. That's a bit of a rare one, I think. As we're watching Foley and Lime Mitch go side by side through the very, very fast kink at turn 11, and they're on the run down to the final sequence of corners now. Lime Mitch is going to have the high ground, but Foley's going to try and hang it with him, is he? Around the outside? No. Going to look for the over and under here, but Lime Mitch is awake and sort of covers that off. Tries to force Foley to go the long way, and Lime Mitch is going to hold this for the moment. So very, very smart defensive thinking there from Lime Mitch, realising that Foley was trying to line him up for the over and under and headed that off very, very early.
Yeah, and because of that compound section of corners, as Foley takes a little peek into turn 1, but decides better of it, you've really got to, you can almost over under the over-under as you go through that sequence of 3 corners. So Lime Mitch positioned his car very, very well to sort of take that option away from Foley as they come over the rise into turn 3, which might be my favorite camera shot of the circuit. Just look at that as they bound over the crest and into turn 4. Lime Mitch is doing very well to defend here from Foley. We know how quick Foley is and how potent that Viper is, as Foley takes a much wider exit out of turn 6, maybe looking to get a bit more speed into turn 7 here. Lime Mitch has had to go a little narrow to defend, and that's inviting Foley onto the back, but very good defensive driving from Lime Mitch and very good attacking driving from Foley as well as they fly through turn 8.
Yeah, this is a really good example of both elements in the equation, being able to attack but also being able to defend, and how the people can hold up to the pressure as well. Foley's going to have a look at a move down here at turn 9, pulls back into the slipstream of the BMW for the minute. Now, he needs to line this pass up out of here, and he needs to get a really good run, and he's done just that. He's muscling, he's monstering, he's touching, he's giving Morse code to Lime Mitch all the way down this straight here. This is about as close as you want to get. Onboard shots from Lime Mitch, onboard shots from Foley. Now Foley's backed out of it. So, wow, I think maybe he thought that was probably a little bit too aggressive as he backs it into the second couple of last corners here.
74 thousandths of a second as they cross the sector 2 marker between the two of them. But Foley's got a great run out of that final corner. Now can he have a dive into turn 1 this time around? I think Foley, he's been boxed out. There he goes over to the inside. Can he make the braking zone? No, he can't. Mitch has been terrific under braking and once again keeps that Viper behind him. It's been a ding-dong battle between these two already, and we've got 20 minutes into the race. Foley can't have a look through the inside of turn 3 there. No, you can't do that.
He's looking. Lime Mitch is going to leave him the space here, but the next turn goes the wrong way. It goes right. And has he done it? He's done it. Foley's got to the... We were on board. We were wondering where Lime Mitch was, but he's managed to pull that pass off. What a fantastic move from Brenton Foley through one of the most difficult parts of the track, and not one we expected there to be a passing move. We were on board, as we said at the time. Let's have a look at how he set this one up. So he pulled out to the other side of the track, had a look down the inside. Mitch made a mistake, left in the space on the inside, but this is where the problem was. Foley was ahead at the critical moment, and Foley just committed and left that space on the inside and just plain drove around the outside.
That is phenomenal driving from the pair of them. From Lime Mitch to keep the car out of the dirty stuff on the outside of turn 3, because you can spear straight off there if you get it wrong. And secondly, Foley around the outside into turn 4, coming down the hill. How he managed to keep that level of speed to wrap around the BMW, I have no idea. What a great exhibition of driving from the pair of them.
Absolutely, and I know we've had a bit of a moment from hitting the curb on the inside. I know we've chastised a few drivers for doing some silly things, and I know a few Super 2 drivers have been wrapped on the knuckles for doing silly passing manoeuvres and stuff, but that's the prime example of what you want to see. Leaving the space, situational awareness, knowing where your opponent is at every step of the way, and it always takes a willing participant when you're trying to pull off overtaking manoeuvres. Everybody's got to be willing to give up the ghost at some point and say, well, you know what, enough's enough. But that's just top draw, hats off to the pair of them, as you said. I can't, that's probably one of the best passing moves of the night I think we've seen.
Yeah, absolutely. And keep in mind as well, it was only last round at Valencia that Lime Mitch got a bit of a slap on the wrist for a bit, what would we call it, exuberant defending into
Correct.
turn 1 between himself and Peter Savage. Good to see that maybe the warning has paid off and given us a great moment in this race.
Well, speaking of Pete Savage, he's just very quietly just motored away, just kept his pace up. we have a look at some of the lap times that he's been doing over the course of the last 5 or 6 laps, and he's actually been relatively consistent. 52.8, 52.7, 52.4, 52.5, and then the only real outlier in the last couple of laps was a 53.0. But everything else, as we did say, the pace is going to be somewhere in that mid-52s to mid-53s. He's spot on the marker at the minute, and he's taking, a couple of tenths of a second a lap comfortably out of Steve Bolger at the minute. Ultimately, their best laps are not that far apart. But when you look at Steve Bolger's times, he's more consistently in the higher side of the 52s and even into the low 53s than Pete Savage is right now. So Pete's really got Steve's measure at the moment.
Yeah, and to be honest, I think Pete might even be a little surprised by that. We were talking just before the race started, and he was saying that he can't really maintain that low 52 pace that the likes of Devonish and Bolger were setting in the practice servers. But with Devonish, unfortunately, out of the race, and Bolger not seeming to have quite the absolute pace at this stage as we were expecting, it's looking very good for Peter. As you mentioned, mid-52s lap times for him as compared to 53.4 versus 52.7 last time around. So maybe it's a bit of a mental thing as well. Maybe because Bolger's seen Devonish drop out, maybe he's kind of relaxed and gone, okay, I don't need to push the envelope as much as I might have if I had that direct competitor still in. Whereas Peter's he's just out front setting lap times. So it could be a bit of a mental thing. It could be just a bit of the pace on the night thing. But I'm a little surprised to see that Bolger is that far away. Just quickly wrapping back to that battle for third, Lime Mitch is back ahead.
Yeah, I was about to say, I looked at it before and said Brenton Foley was behind, but he was 9 seconds behind the leader. So that pass has only just happened in the first sector on this lap.
And it was a mistake at turn 3 for Foley. He locked the wheel up as they came over the crest and went wide into the marbles that he almost pushed Lime Mitch into the lap prior. So all that hard work in the end for naught for Brenton Foley.
I was about to say, and on top of that, Aaron Thomas really hasn't made any inroads into this pair at all. I mean, that gap has pretty much stayed stationary or visually where it has been. Even while these two have been battling, he hasn't been able to really make up too much ground. Aaron Thomas is doing sort of similar lap times to these guys as well. They're in the 53 or the mid 53s, and Aaron Thomas's best lap is last lap was a 53.500, only 0.3 slower than what his fastest lap is. Foley actually set a 53.0 on the previous lap, but then made that mistake, as you said, down at turn 3. Although the mistake doesn't seem to have phased him very much, because he's very quickly got onto the back of this BMW again.
I think once he's realised that he can pass the BMW once, he can do it again and again and again, perhaps. So he's in the wheel tracks now as they come down the main straight.
First pit stopper is Ozrob, taking the bait at the 34, just under the 35-minute mark. This is maybe slightly early. If they've done their fuel calculations right, though, this means you can have a long second stint. Maybe might pay off with some an early gain on the track position as everybody else starts to fade on the current tyre set.
Yeah, that's an interesting strategy ploy, definitely. But this battle between Lime Mitch and Brenton Foley, they're almost making contact through turn 3, are coming down to 4 and 5 now. So very, very tight between the two cars. 34 minutes is certainly not unheard of to do in one of these cars, but it is going to be a fair.
There's tagging. There's tagging again at turn 7. Foley's really giving the hurry up here. I was going to say, you're not going to make it past down the inside the first part of turn 8, are you? And Lime Mitch was very much about to leave the door open, I think. But he's made a mistake, and Foley thought about sticking his nose in there through the third and fourth part of turn 8. That would have really been a bold move if he decided to try and pull that off.
And thought about it again into turn 9 and 10. Now, the thing is, the BMW is so quick in a straight line that even coming out of these corners, even getting a good exit, Foley's still only about a few Ks down on where the BMW is. But he's got a great run this time. Goes to the outside.
Caught a bit of grass, though. Caught a bit of grass. He was right up behind Lime Mitch. We decided to switch to the bumper cam to see if we could get a good look at it. But I think he was compromised by understeering wide and running two left side tyres over the grass on the outside of turn 11.
And if he'd been able to stay out there, he would have had the inside for this sequence of corners. So it's been not exactly what Foley would have wanted there, but he's, again, got a great exit. He's got a few kilometers up on line, Mitch. They come across the main straight. Gap is just under 0.4 of a second as Foley has a little peak again, but doesn't quite commit. And in fact, runs a little wide as well. You can see the brake lock, the smoke on the camera there. So this battle has been a ding-dong battle for the last 10-15 minutes between these two, and it's looking like it's going to continue on.
Yeah, and it looks like Brenton Foley might be thinking about a pit stop as well, maybe trying to go for the undercut here, seeing what Ozrob's doing, thinking, you know what, if I'm going to struggle to pass this BMW on the track, maybe I'm going to have to do it in the pit lane and get out and sprint some laps. Foley's clearly the quicker car out of this pair at the moment. It's just that mistake put him behind the car that he'd struggled for a couple of laps to pass, and he was trying to clear away. So maybe the pit stop and getting out in some clean air is going to be really the only way he really seals this deal. Mitch is going to have to be pretty much awake to it, though. I think he's going to have to be thinking about what Foley's going to be doing. If Foley dives in, Lime Mitch is going to have to put in a stellar in lap and be in the next lap. It's really going to force his hand if Foley comes in the next lap.
Yeah, and remember, Foley has said throughout the entirety of this series that one of the advantages the Viper has, he has another little look into turn 9, is the fuel economy. So he has the flexibility to be able to do that undercut, and he might have to as he's again nosing the rear of that BMW coming out of the turn 10.
Got the inside this time, gone the different direction. Lime Mitch is going to have to give him some space, so he does. And this puts Foley on the outside for turn 12, though, if Lime Mitch can take the defensive line through it. So going the unorthodox way. I don't think you're going to be able to go around the outside of 12 here unless your opponent makes a mistake. And Lime Mitch does really good to cover that off defensively. Now, what's Foley deciding to do? In. Right. So that answers that question. Foley does come in and is classified as third for all but a handful of seconds. So he is the second man to stop. Ozrob coincidentally has come out in position 15 in between Cracker and Brian Walsh, and in actual fact he's looking, I think, very much at trying to line up a pass on Cracker. Here he is through turn 8. What was his outlap like? So his outlap is, he's a bit further down the order, was a 2:51.6, so it's costing you about 55 seconds or so to transit the lane and stop.
Okay, so we'll have to keep eyes on that where are we? Foley is in the pits. He's dropping down the order now.
Down to 8th at the moment. 9th now, sorry.
Come out maybe just ahead of the battle for between Williams and Wayne Whitmore.
Yep, John McDonald's taken the bait to come in as well. So too Wayne Whitmore and Matt Williams. They've all decided to come into the lane. So Foley is rolling down the lane now. Ozrob is the one we need to pay attention to. Where's he in this equation? He's still on the main straight. So Foley's managed to stay clear of the Lamborghini, so that's good. He's come out into some clean air. Ozrob's also managed to clear Cracker, who is yet to stop, or at least from what our pictures are telling us, he's yet to, and our info is telling us he's yet to stop.
So what did you say that pit lane transit time was? About 51 seconds?
55, thereabouts.
55 seconds. So based on that, if the leader is going to come in and make a pit stop now, he should drop out in between Steve Burko and Luke Joyner for 7th place. So that's a nice little slot of air, but if he can put in a few good laps and get ahead of Burko, that gives him a 20-second window ahead of him to drop into. So that might be something to keep an eye on. As I think we
got some takers actually. We've got Aaron Thomas from what was position 4, deciding to take service now for MHRT and BMW. Brendan Ross also pulls the trigger. Brunswick goes around again, and I think I saw a bit further on, looks like Termo was looking to make his stop as well. Then we're past the half distance mark, so getting in now and getting home shouldn't be an issue. It's just a matter of how far you want to stretch it. Now, Pete Savage has started to drop into the 53s. His last lap was actually a 53.6. It was still quicker than Steve Bolger to the tune of 0.3 of a second. As we are right, Termo does decide to take the bait and take service. Rossi and Aaron Thomas still in the lane. Brunswick will probably look like he's going to be coming in for a stop on this particular lap. And Lime Mitch is still continuing to go around. He's still continuing to pound the bitumen. So
and that might be to his detriment. The gap between himself and Foley is just on a minute, so it'll be very, very tight to see if he can get out ahead of the BC Racing Viper.
I think Foley's out lap is actually a little bit better than the initial benchmark lap that we got from Ozrob. I'm just waiting to see Foley's final sector pop up on our timing screens. Limich, I think, looks like he might be coming in now.
Peter's in now as well.
All right,
from the lead of the race. Savage is in.
And Steve Bolger, I think, is probably going to pull the trigger as well, and he does. So race top three are coming into the lane now.
And Mitch comes in as well.
Yep. And then Brunswick will probably be the next one in the queue. So Brenton Foley actually, it was similar out lap to Ozrob. Actually, that was a 2:54. Ozrob did a 2:51. So Foley actually cost himself an extra 3 seconds on his out lap. So that will be key to see where he is relative to Lime Mitch. So Peter Bolger, Lime Mitch is in the lane, and that's Cracker in as well for his stop. So going through cars that are already a lap down.
It's a long pit lane here. It's about it's a long time to transit because it's the full length of that main straight. So
Burko's in, Joiner's in. So pretty much most of the field is in. Here's the man we're wanting to see, Brenton Foley. What has he been able to do with this out lap and then first flying lap? He's backed it into turn 12. That's going to cost him some time. I don't think he's going to be able to hang on to that for the minute. And Lime Mitchell is still stationary. Peter's transiting the lane, so too's Bolger. Burko's come in. Lime Mitch is still stationary. I think Lime Mitch maybe repaired some damage. He's going to lose position to Brenton Foley. I think he was stationary in the lane for far too long. There he goes. And this is not about the outlap, because Foley's outlap was a little bit slower than some of the benchmark laps we've been seeing. I think Foley making that mistake in the final corner, I think, was let off the hook by Lime Mitch sitting in the pit lane for too long.
And just quickly, look just a bit further back. Aaron Thomas has come out only a car length or two ahead of Ozrob. So Ozrob with the undercut has played a great hand there to cut the gap between himself and Thomas down to almost nothing. Because remember, we were saying that Ozrob with that battle of Noah Turra. Oh, sorry, he was in that battle with Brendan Ross. Sorry. So they had a little bit of a gap, but not nearly as much. Not nearly as much as what we're seeing now. Sorry, the other way around. It was much, much bigger than what we're seeing now. There we go. I got there in the end.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. That's a very, very good strategy call from Ozrob. Get in, get your tyres on, get clean air, set some really, really competitive lap times. Now you find yourself inside the top six, albeit still with that lag issue that has been plaguing him all night.
But that's provided he can make the tyres last to the end, especially that right front, as we're watching Foley again, a little difficult for him out of turn 10. So while Foley has done the undercut, it might be a tyre condition thing that might come to bite him later on the race. That might be true as well for Ozrob.
Correct. Will be interesting to see how Foley treats those rear end tyres over the course of the next 24 3/4 minutes. What also changed in that sequence of stops as well was the deficit from first to second. It has more than halved. That gap was out to nearly 5 seconds by the time they both came in for service, Pete Savage and Steve Bolger. Now it's nearly 2.4 seconds, but it's going up, and it's going in the right direction if you're Pete Savage.
Yeah, and that's down to a 5 seconds slower. That must be a pit stop, because Peter Savage didn't really have too much of a problem on his outlap. 5 seconds slower first sector that last time around. So must be something in the pit stop. Maybe fuel miscalculation, maybe a bit of damage that might have been picked up. I'm not sure where, because Peter's been absolutely Peter perfect so far this race. But at the moment, it looks at least that Savage might just... while the gap's been halved, I don't necessarily think that that's too much of an issue for him if he's able to continually set that lap time.
No, I don't think so either. As long as he's able to pull a tenth or two each sector like he was doing in the opening half of the race, I think he's going to be cruising to victory here. We did see that the previous race at Valencia, he did have a little moment in the pit stops that he did admit to after the race was over. that he did take on a little bit too much fuel than what he probably needed to.
And then the tyres as well. He didn't swap the tyres at that first stop.
Correct. He didn't swap the tyres at the first stop either, so he was fighting on worn rubber for the whole middle stint of that race. And a circuit like Valencia, where you really need a lot of that lateral grip, you're going to be struggling, basically.
So that I probably was a bit maybe conservative then with the tyres, making sure that he got everything set up perfectly to not encounter that issue again, because we did see that really affected the middle part of his race last time around. He still finished on the podium, if I recall correctly, so it wasn't too bad for him in the end.
No, he still had a very good solid run, and he's starting to get his act together in AMSIs a little bit as well. So GT cars are certainly starting to come to his akin and starting to get a handle on them. He's been doing quite well in the Supercar series as well. His home track in Barbagallo and Wanneroo, Perth, Western Australia was the last round, and he did pretty well there. There's a Lamborghini going awfully slowly, and there's Brian Walsh just having a bit of a moment there, locking up in a couple of spots as well. I was a bit worried that he was off the road, locking up drastically on the front left going into there as well. Has Walsh got a problem here? Has he got like left-hand steering, Dan, or something here?
I'm not sure. I'll jump on board and have a little bit of a look, but it's not too difficult to lock that inside front through that corner as it drops away from you. It is that unloaded side, so it's not unheard of. But maybe while she's just struggling, with 40 minutes into the race almost now, so we might just be getting a bit of mental fatigue around a very difficult circuit like we are, like the one we're at. Just a quick aside, as it looks like while she's steering is pretty straight. Peter Savage just set the fastest first sector of the race so far, a 41.9 to the first sector mark. So cracking work from Savage so far in this stint, and he's already put a second into that gap between himself and Bolger.
Yeah, it's about 0.3 of a second slower than what the qualifying pace was. The quickest sector time in Sector 1 was a 41.6 in the qualifying session, if memory serves me correctly. Once you're done through the middle sector here, live timing is still... It's a little bit better than what it was, but that's not too bad either.
It's pretty competitive. This could be a new fastest lap of the race for Peter Savage as he's coming across the line while she gets out of the way very nicely for him. And
it sure is.
That's a 52.1. Whoa.
That's very, very impressive. It's early in this tie stint, though, as well. Brian Walsh doing very well to get out of the way there. We've been drumming it into a number of the drivers through some racecraft sessions about situational awareness. One of the ones we picked up on was if you can see it coming, you can actually take action a lot earlier. And Walsh did really well there, realised that it wasn't going to be too long before the race leader was on the back of him, so he elected to pull over in the safe spot to do so, which was the main straight, and just let him go by. And that's the sensible thing to do.
Yeah, it helps keep the lap traffic out of the battle for the lead, and keeps it a bit more pure, I guess you could say. Just quickly cycling down to a few other battles on track. This battle between Aaron Thomas and Ozrob is really fiery now. That gap is now only about a quarter of a second as they come into turn 7. Then a bit further back, the battle for the tail end of the top 10 between Steve Burko, Termo, and Luke Joyner as well, just off the tail of that. That's very fiery as well at the moment. So we'll see how that one pans out. It looks like Termo's trying to have a little bit of a look on that Aston Martin down the main straight, but not quite close enough. Remember, Termo had that spin on lap 1, so this recovery for him back to 10th place was actually quite a stringent drive from the Motorsport not McLaren, Aston Martin, the other English brand.
The other English brand. Yeah, and it's back to where he started, more importantly, as well. So if only not for that spin, what I guess could have been if he was able to keep it on the blacktop, as Joyner has a moment through turn 4, and that just loses him some touch with this battle. And Termo got a pretty reasonable exit on Steve Burko. It's still not close enough, just still doesn't have that straight line advantage to try and make a pass here. Now, Burko going with a defensive and a narrower line here. Termo just at the wrong point in time just tried to carry a bit too much speed, but that Lexus was in the way, so he couldn't carry the amount of speed he wanted to try and really stay with the Lexus up towards turn 8.
Yeah, and this is something that I talk quite a lot about in racing, is racing with your brain as well. And Lewis Wedding does this fantastically. Sometimes if you get too close to the rear of a car, you kind of get stuck under the rear wing. You can't really make use of your pace advantage when you have it. So sometimes it's a bit wiser to step back a little bit, give yourself 2 or 3 car lengths, as Tomo's done now, and try and maximize your pace advantage when you've got it, so that way you're right on the back, right when you've got the space to really make the most of it. And Termo's certainly doing that now as they dive into the final sequence of corners. Not quite on the tail of the Lexus, but certainly a lot closer than he was just a lap ago. And he's got a pretty decent run through that second part. He could try the over-under here as Burko's forced to go narrow and Termo has a bit of the wider line. We'll just see if we can get a bit closer view here. Termo is very, very close to the rear of that Lexus. They come down the main straight. He swings out to the right and doesn't quite commit to making that move. But again, this battle is raging on. Keep in mind, this also has implications for the Silver Cup Championship. Termo is, sorry, I thought Termo was head of the Silver
gold.
Cup. That's actually,
No.
yeah,
No.
Termo was gold. I made that mistake. I apologize for that one. But actually, the battle for the Silver Cup is between Ozrob and Lime Mitch for this race. So the fact that they're currently in 4th and 6th on the road is a pretty tight tussle. And Ozrob being on the back of Lime Mitch's MHRT teammate as well, hoping that maybe the team orders come in and Thomas does his absolute best to block out Ozrob for the remainder of the race. We've got about 17 minutes left plus 1 lap to go.
Yeah, this 60, or the better part of this 60 minutes that's already elapsed has gone very, very quickly, hasn't it?
We've had plenty to talk about, from championship changing incidents or disconnects to a bit of server lag at the moment as well.
Yep, a little bit of server lag going on as well at the moment. I've just noticed that. I was just hoping it wasn't my end, but you've mentioned it as well, so it's definitely not. Termo has a look down at turn 9, little sneaky look. He's got some pace here, Termo. He's getting some reasonable runs out of some of the corners. He's just not getting that little 1%, that extra that he needs to make it happen. His best shot last lap was out of turn 14, the final corner here. He stayed with Burko as much as he could. Burko's covering the line. Termo's trying to narrow it up and trying to force his way down the inside. He's going to get the job done, or is he? He's along side by side. Burko almost Burko almost cuts the nose off that Aston Martin. Now Luke Joyner's decided he wants to stick it in there as well. Look at the different lines here as well. On this particular occasion, they all went the same line. The previous lap, Termo went a little bit wider and got much better purchase out of the final corner. He didn't have that luxury that time because Luke Joyner was right there.
Yeah, and it's one of those things now that Joyner's on the tail of the group, you don't have the luxury of not having to look in your mirror. So the last lap around, as you said, Termo was able to take that big swooping wide line through the final corner. But this time he's got to be worried about Joyner behind him, and he's had to narrow it up a little bit. So he's got to make that move on Burko as soon as he can. Otherwise, Joyner might even be pecking at his heels as they come down the hill at turn 4. Again, very narrow exit from Termo, trying to really wind the speed in through this opening corner at the bottom of the hill. And he gets a little bit of oversteer, a little bit of wheel spin on the exit there, so not quite able to capitalize. But this battle group is intriguing to watch as we hit 15 minutes remaining.
Yeah, we've gone on board here from the passenger side cam with Termo as well, just to see the different lines that take Burko with a much more pace-wise approach, going all the way out to the edge of the track. Very, very loud Aston Martin. We have to talk a little bit louder just to make sure we can be heard. Different lines as well. Burko slightly compromised through that last part of turn 8.
And there goes Joyner.
It didn't make the apex, and then Joyner's going to get the pair of them, is he? No, he's going to get one of them at least.
But that might then open the door back up to Termo, who gets a much better run. He could do the over-under. Joyner gets a bit of wheel spin, and now it's Joyner in 10th place between the pair of them. And this has thrown an absolute spanner in the works of this battle, because now Termo's got to be concerned with trying to pass both of them. And Burko's weaving down the back straight, trying to break the draft as they come into the final section of the corners, narrows the braking, forces Joyner onto the outside, but goes deep. Joyner gets a slopper on. It's all happening here in the last section of corners.
Joyner pulled that one up at a very, very vast rate of knots, a little bit too much. Burko's taken a little bit too much off that last curb than what I think Stuart Lewis Wedding would probably like to see, getting all 4 wheels to the wrong side of the curb. But we're on board with Termo, and you actually just heard him as he went round the corner. He was a bit worried. He just hesitated a bit and lifted the throttle at the last part of turn 8, and that was enough for Luke Joyner just to seize on that opportunity and just blast by the Aston Martin on the run down to turn 9. So situational awareness, taking full advantage of what situation presented him. Now, what can Luke Joyner do about Steve Berko?
Or what can Steve Berko do about Luke Joyner and Turmo? They're all fighting each other here, and Berko's done a great job of driving defensively, using the advantages of that Lexus in the slower corners and really keeping the apexes away from his competitors here. He's done a great job to hold on to that ninth place, and it's opened up a can of worms between Joyner and Turmo, who are battling now for the tail end of the top 10. This is cracking stuff.
A couple of drivers have taken a page out of Nether's School of Defensive Driving tonight. Speaking of defensive driving, yes, speaking of defensive driving, this has still been going on with Aaron Thomas and Ozrob for the better part of the last 5 or 6 laps now. Still the BMW holds down 5th place over the 6th place Lamborghini. Ozrob has not been able to find a way through. There's just a couple of little parts of the track here where he just loses a little bit of touch, and then he gathers it back up, and then the cycle just seems to repeat itself.
And remember, Ozrob was the earliest to take that pit stop, so he's probably beginning to suffer a little bit of tyre fatigue. So the last few laps for Ozrob has been firmly in the 53s, which has been very, very good to see. In fact, he's at the fastest last sector 3 or 4 laps ago. But compare that to Aaron Thomas, who's doing about the same, but he's much more consistently now in the low 53s. Ozrob's been a bit all over the place. So the cracking battle between the pair of them, but you can just begin to see Ozrob's lap time begin to just sort of slip off the edge as the tyres are starting to hurt.
Yeah, he's starting to take that pain now of that early stop. It probably manifested itself in the last sort of 2 or 3 minutes, I'd imagine. He did take service at just after the 35 minutes to go marker had come up.
Yep. On lap 13 it was.
And everybody else was sort of about 5 minutes later, or 5 to 8 minutes later. So Aaron Thomas was one of those participants, was the last ones to come in for a stop. So he's had the benefit of that tyre to be able to hang on, and is making it work really well for him. Liam Mitch is also making it work for him really well. He's closed up on the back of Brenton Foley over the course of the last 2 or 3 laps as well. I've been keeping an eye on that margin. It was out to about 1.5 seconds at one point. Now it's really started to swing back the other way. Liam Mitch has actually, Brenton Foley last time around was a 52.8 to Liam Mitch's 53.45, and it's gone the opposite way this time. Mitch is the quicker of the 2 cars on this particular occasion.
By 7/10.
By 7/10 of a second, and all of that's come in that middle sector because there's only 0.2 of a second between them at the first sector marker on the previous lap.
Yeah, it was all in that second sector of 42 flat plates of 41.5 between the pair of them. So Liam Mitch seems to get that middle sector where there's that long straight section coming out of the Diabolica turn 8 really hooked up, and this could be another one of those like tire fatigue sort of situations here. Foley might find that while he managed to make the undercut work in the middle of the race, he might struggle towards the end of the race. We know Foley's driving style is very much right foot heavy. He likes to get the back out, likes to really spin the tires, use the throttle to steer the car. That might come to bite him in the bum as we approach 10 minutes remaining in this race.
Yeah, this is contrasting situations for different drivers. It's very wide for Liam Mitch. Contrasting situations for different drivers. Foley with the older tyres in front of a car with newer tyres, and then you've got Aaron Thomas with the newer tyres in front of Ozrob with the older tyres as well. And you can see here, Foley's had that's a huge mistake from Foley. Tried to carry too much speed through that sequence of corners 9 and 10, whereas Liam Mitch, I think that's, if I was about to say, if I'm honest with you, that's probably where he's been gaining a bit of the time on Foley overall on the lap time, is being a lot better in the traction zone out of turn 10.
Outbrake Foley around the outside into turn 12. Now, can he hold the inside line into turn 13? They make a little bit of contact there between the Viper and the BMW, but Liam Mitch makes the move and stays ahead going across the start-finish line.
Great driving.
Liam Mitch did a Foley on Foley.
He basically
went around the outside.
Great driving. Absolutely sensational driving from the pair of them. Worthy of another shot on the replay. Let's go with the onboards from the bonnet, from the roof cam. So going the long way here. Liam Mitch is one of the supreme late breakers in AMS Oz. Where was the contact? Just there. Just there. So Liam Mitch left a little bit of space. I think maybe Foley might have been looking for the over and under treatment, and there was none coming.
there was just a BMW in the way. Very well done from Line Mitch to hang it around the outside there, and he's got that move done. So again, Foley is looking at the rear of that MHRT BMW with the big 13 on the rear of it. So a bit of a once again, second verse same as the first for Foley in the late stages of this stint, just like the first one, again behind that BMW, but cracking racing between the pair of them. Two of the best moves of the night have come from this battle for third between Line Mitch and Brendan Foley.
And there's been a move just made as well. Termo's managed to make a move stick on the Lexus of Steve Burko, and Luke Joyner's buying into this as well. I just saw it flip over on the timing screen, so I don't think we're going to have a chance to go back and look at the replay, but Termo has finally managed to make that move happen, and Luke Joyner has capitalised on Termo's decision to make the pass.
Yeah, I just had a quick scroll back through the replay to see what was up. They actually went side by side through the last sequence of corners, Termo and Burko, which not only gave Termo the position, but also really compromised Burko's run onto the main straight. And that was all he needed.
Look at this, though.
To past Joyner. But Joyner, this time Burko gets around the outside on Joyner, does the Foley on Joyner. So again, that move around the outside at turn 4. We weren't expecting a lot of moves there, were we, throughout the night? And this time Joyner comes back at him up the hill into turn 7. And
over and under, a little bit of contact. That was on Luke Joyner, that one. Just a little bit of an out-braking manoeuvre. It came from a little bit too far back, just went a little bit too deep in the braking zone, and ultimately ended up leaving the door ajar, and there was just a little touch of contact, but I don't think that's going to be frowned upon.
No, I think that was just a brush, you'd call it. Just a brush.
Just a brush.
So while we've got 7 minutes left...
Sorry, Luke Joyner was looking like he was about to have a really late dive at Burko there. And he's actually having another look again. Got a fantastic drive out of turn 10.
And he's going to take the inside line into the kink. He's got it done before the kink. Now, can Burko maybe try and use that Lexus power to come back at him? Or is Joyner just going to keep on going and try and get onto the Aston Martin's rear end?
Burko's decided to give up the game, I think, for the minute. Just tuck in behind the Lambo and see if Luke Joyner can drag the pair of them back up to Termo, who's gone wide through the second last corner. And now he's had to take a really narrow line for the final corner. So this is not over by any stretch of the imagination for the back end of the top 10. There are several positions in the top 10 that are not decided. Line Mitch and Foley, Thomas and Osrob, and this trio.
I think this trio is where the action-packed drama is going to be. But just quickly, I did catch the last lap around. Foley just dropped off the back of Line Mitch. It's not too much this time around, but it was about a second. So Foley's actually really come back onto the tail of Line Mitch this lap. So impressive work from Foley, but again, he's having to fight. But this battle here between Termo, Joyner, and Burko is something else at the moment, as we got just over 5.5 minutes left. Getting close to the end.
Getting close to the end. 60 minutes started 54 and a half minutes ago, but it's taken us a little while to let a lot of this unravel, and it still hasn't completely unraveled. This man's had a solid debut in GT3 machinery. 8th place, up one spot from where he started, pretty much by virtue of his team leader exiting stage right, but pretty much uneventful aside from the one moment down at turn 4.
Yeah, it's a decent run from Hans. He's kind of had a bit of a lonely night, but I don't think that will bother him too much. I think he just likes being out there on the track. Yeah, as you made mention, had a little bit of a moment which dropped him behind Osrob and Ross, who are having a battle. So unfortunate for him. He'll probably rue that mistake for a little while, but on the whole, I think he's just having a bit of fun out there as well.
Yeah, he's enjoying himself. I know he's dovetailing some of his other commitments and doing Super 2, which of course is this coming Friday night from Hamilton, and he's also doing a little bit of driving in the TCAC series as well.
Yes, he's been really enjoying that one. Just quickly, back to the battle for third place. It's nose to tail yet again. Foley driving down the inside into turn 9. Is he going to be able to get it done? No, Line Mitch shuts the door on him, but there's a bit of Morse code on the bumper from Foley as they come through turn 10. And it's just as you were half an hour ago before the pit stops. Foley and Line Mitch nose to tail heading through the kink. A whole nothing between the pair of them as they come up the back straight. Again, remember the BMW has a bit of a power advantage perhaps as they come into the final section of corners. Lion Mitch, again, very, very deep on the brakes. Maybe a little too deep, runs a little wide, but he's got the apex covered for the next corner. Can Foley do the over and under onto the main straight? Very narrow from Lion Mitch, so it's going to open up the opportunity for Foley.
Good exit by Foley. Got a huge... Did the right thing, went for the over and under, took the wide line, got a really good drive off the final corner. That's going to give him purchase on the inside here. If Lion Mitch can somehow hang it around the outside, it leaves him the space, and they're going to run side by side through the opening couple of corners. What a move. What an attempt at a move. What valiant defence by Lion Mitch. Now, if these two continue to trip over each other, Aaron Thomas has started to kick away from Ozrob here, and he could be right in the thick of this battle for the last step on the podium if this goes on for much longer.
And it's going to go on at least for turn 4 and 5. Foley's done the same move as he did the first stint, and he's got it around the outside of turn 4. Well done, Foley. Now, that was all because Lion Mitch went a little too deep into turn 3 and locked the rears. That sprayed him out a little wide, but still, great work from Foley to take advantage of it. Now, he's got to hold it. He's got to hold it, and he's lit up the rears coming out of turn 7, so it could be very tight as they dive down into the first apex of turn 8. Yet again, this battle has been paying the bills for this race tonight.
And I believe there might be some lap traffic coming into the equation here as well. I think just having a look at what's on track ahead, yeah, it's John McDonald who's already a lap down, and ahead of him I think it's Wayne Whitmore not too far up the road as well. So I'm not sure if these two will catch the traffic between now and the end of the race.
They'll probably catch McDonald.
Yeah, our race leader is on his 30th lap, so we're actually going to get 33. So we're going to be one lap over what the estimate was going to be. So that's so hot has been the pace that and even setting 53 still is Pete Savage. So he'll get to the line with only a couple of seconds left on the clock to start his 32nd lap. And then it'll be 33 will be the distance.
He could even slow it up a little bit if he wants to. I think he's got that much space. It's 13 seconds between the top two, but this battle for third is where we're focused on now, and it's the other way around this time. Foley ahead of Lion Mitch as they head into turn 1 and 2. Lion Mitch with a very good run out of turn 1. Can he capitalize on that as they come up the hill into the blind entry to turn 3? Could he do a Foley on Foley yet again?
The Foley parks it firmly and squarely on the apex there, and he's just going to have to hug every apex, block every potential move off here. Got to drive it straight, got to drive it fair, got to make sure you hit every little piece of road that you need to be hitting with that car. Got to shift your eyes from one spot to the next. So from the outside of that apex of that corner there at turn 6 to the braking zone here, eyes shift to the inside to try and get the car position. Now they start to move to the outside, but he's decided no, he's at the rear up. Was there a little bit of a love tap there? I'm not quite sure that there was. I think he tried to just pick the throttle up a little bit too early.
And again, that's brought Lion Mitch right onto the bumper. But because of the way that these cars work, you can't really make the move through turn 8. You kind of have to just sit in the wheel tracks. And Lion Mitch has done that very well. In fact, he's gotten a little bit of a run, but not quite enough to challenge into turn 9. They go back up the hill, hit the curb on the inside, and ride it on the right rather. This time, much narrower for Lion Mitch out of there. He's actually dropped a few car lengths off the tail of Foley there. I wonder if that was a mistake or a missed shift or something, but he's given Foley a little bit of room as we're coming across the line to start the penultimate lap.
Yeah, so Pete Savage has taken lap 32 here. Lion Mitch has a dive down the inside. Yeah, he's decided to have a late dive down the inside. We just crossed to see what our race leader was up to, and he's got 2 more laps to go. It's probably music for Aaron Thomas's ears, because he will probably be hoping that they have got 2 more laps instead of 1 to see if he can make any sort of fist of this battle that's going on ahead of him, and also to see if the lap traffic ahead plays into the equation, which is John McDonald and Wayne Whitmore getting it on at turn 1.
And they are going to make a little bit of side-to-side contact here, which is going to encourage maybe Foley and Lion Mitch to get into each other as well. So this could pay a really really big part of this last lap battle, or this penultimate lap battle rather, as they're again still touching bumpers between Whitmore and McDonald. And Lion Mitch dives to the inside on the inside of turn 4, and they make a little bit of contact between himself and Foley, and they're going to run side by side into turn 5. Is Lion Mitch going to try and use the power around the outside? They're going to go side by side again as Ozrob picks up a penalty that must be for track limits, which is a little surprising, I have to admit. Unless he's run out of fuel, which is entirely possible, as Foley does wrap around the front of the BMW to, again, light up the rears out of turn 7 to take third place.
Oh, this is worrying for these three here, because McDonald and Whitmore are locked in their own battle, but they're going to be getting blue flags right now to cede position here. Now, the ruling's got to be that they've just got to, stop their battle for a little bit, let them go past, and then they can pick up their battle again. But they're not going to want to do that because there's only a lap to go. So they don't want to be taking too much time out of each other. Foley's should be put the headlights on. There he is. I was about to say, get the headlights on, Foley. Get these guys out the way. So McDonald decides, nope, time to get out of the throttle here.
Oh.
Long way around for Lion Mitch, having to go the wrong way around John McDonald. Now Wayne Whitmore, what's he going to do here? Is he going to hold them up? Oh, he's going to go deep through the last couple of corners, but he's got to be really careful here. He's let the two of them go through, and then this has not worked out the way that Aaron Thomas wanted it to work out, because the two ahead of him have gotten through, but he hasn't been able to clear this traffic yet.
Yeah, it might just be an awareness thing. Maybe with Foley having the lights on, you might let him through, but you might be unaware that there's Lion Mitch and also Aaron Thomas just behind. So Thomas is trying to dive to the inside on the pair of them.
Oh, and there's a dive from John McDonald there as well. Aaron Thomas would be, he'd be
ropeable with them now.
Yeah, he'd be worried sick that these guys are going to have a huge accident in a minute.
And that's absolutely taken him out of this battle that was brewing.
Yeah, that's sad.
So, yeah, remember, last lap now. So Peter Savage is coming to turn 8 now. Bolger is on his way to turn 7. So there's no danger of the race win going awry. But this battle for third between Lion Mitch and Brendan Foley, remember, it has implications for Silver Cup for Lion Mitch as well as the overall championship with Will Devonish being out of the race. This could be Foley's chance to step into second position. So plenty to play for between these two here as they come into turn 8 for the final time this evening.
Yeah, and also definitely has Silver Cup implications with Ozrob with a drive-through penalty as well. Now, if he doesn't serve that, then that's going to be a post-race 30-second penalty will be added to his time. I'm not 100% sure if he has served it just yet. He has dropped from 6th down to 7th, so there's a possibility he has. Let's pick up our race leader. Through the last couple of seconds of corners, he has controlled this race virtually all night outside of coming in to take service for the pit stop, which he resumed very promptly, but a deserved first win and another win on the season for Team Antara Baloo Simsport. Pete Savage, another winner in this GT3 season, the 4th winner on the season. Great job.
And Lion Mitch is going to get through for third. Lion Mitch has actually made the move into the final section of corners. He's gone very, very deep to get it done. Now can Foley come through back on the inside as we watch Bolger come across the line to finish second. Lion Mitch, he's got it. He's got the power out of the final corner.
I'm actually wondering if Lion Mitch has got a penalty because it says it's got a drive-through on his screen, and that's demoted him down to 11th. So something's not quite right there. I think maybe he might have extended the track or something's gone wrong there, but he's clearly not happy with that, and that has given Foley the third place. Now we'll have to see what Lewis Wedding, our driving standards observer, says about that, because that didn't flash up on our screen until awfully late. So I'm wondering if there's been something a bit weird go on there, or if it's actually legitimate. We'll have to go back and take a bit of a look.
He took a very narrow line. Oh, he must have just taken a bit too much out of turn 10, but he didn't gain too much speed from it. I don't know what's gone on there. That's a real shame if he's all of a sudden...
You're looking at the outside of turn 10, I'd imagine.
Yeah.
All right,
that'll be a real shame.
Well, that's a bit weird if that's come up so late in the race, though, as well.
So
but
it's come up drive-through assigned by Live Steward, so that must be something that is been unhappy with.
All right, so that was... we might have to get some input from Lewis Wedding on this one. He's joining us in the box now. Lewis, can you shed any light on that situation for Lion Mitch?
Well, he'd been warned numerous times over track limits at the exit of turn 8, as well as a couple of other corners throughout the circuit. And on the last lap, he went well beyond the limits of track 8. putting him down to 14th is wrong. It should only be 25 seconds, which would only put him, I believe, in 5th. So that will be amended. But yeah, he'd had enough warnings, and particularly the way he cut it on that final lap to try and gain position. The distance he was off the track warranted a penalty.
Okay, so 25-second penalty in the battle with the third, which was with Brenton Foley. So that will then demote him down to what is 5th in the running order. So the corrected order is actually Pete Savage, Steve Bolger, Brenton Foley, Aaron Thomas, because Aaron Thomas was only 2 seconds behind Foley, and then Ozrob was 1 minute and 6 seconds behind the leader. So that's where Lime Mitch will slot into, which is interesting too, because Ozrob had a drive-through penalty as well, and he was down to 7th at one stage. So that means that somehow or another he has managed to make his way back into the top 5.
Yeah, what a peculiar one at the end there. It can't be. I think. Yeah, it's. I don't even know what happened. I lost complete track of everything at the end of that race. I was just too busy focused on that battle. But yeah, what a finish.
Well,
I don't even know what to say anymore.
Yeah, very, very nice finish. And we thought that it was sort of getting a little bit quiet through the first part of the race, and then all of a sudden it just came to life in those last 20 minutes. Those couple of different battle groups that just emerged and just fought tooth and nail for everything all the way through to the back end of the top 10, which was actually settled in the order of Termo, Joyner and Burko, was how that order happened. Now, with Lime Mitch needing to be moved a bit further back up the order, that means that Burko misses out on the top 10 there. So that battle was, very, very feisty, as was the battle for third place overall. We've got that man here at the moment, so we might as well have a chat to him. Third place man, Brenton Foley. Mate, talk us through that battle with Lime Mitch. That went on for probably at least 25 minutes of a 60-minute race tonight.
Yeah, it was pretty full on. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I was actually, when I was ahead of him, I wasn't even paying attention to him. I was trying to chase down Bolger. We had a very seesaw gap because I find that anytime I sit and stare at the rearview mirror, I'm going to make a mistake. But it was pretty hot under the collar moments for me when I crossed the line with 2 laps to go and realized that Pete was going to get across the line with 5 seconds to go, and coming up to the last triple corners, I actually coughed and almost ran out of fuel.
Well, this
but,
is it.
Luckily made it.
That's interesting, because you've been touting the Viper's fuel as one of the strongest things about it. Well, what went wrong on this occasion? Did you just underfill it slightly?
Pure stupidity by my part. I started the race with 19 less litres by accident, not realising that I did. So instead of 120, I started with 101, and then I stretched that to get to the 30-minute mark, and then I did short fill it a little bit. I've been kind of trying to get better at it, and I'm just falling short by underestimating how fast the leader is. But overall, thankfully, it pulled off this time, and hopefully we get it better for the next one.
No, hopefully so. Go on.
We saw that battle just right up to the line between yourself and Lime Mitch. So did you only just give up the ghost at the end because of the fuel warning? Were you keeping an eye on that as well as an eye in the mirror?
I was keeping an eye on both. In the last kind of 3 laps, I realized that when I looked at it, Peter crossed the line with about 6 seconds on the clock, which meant I needed another lap, and I had like 3/4 of a lap left or spare. So the last 3 laps, I was kind of short shifting and saving a little bit where I can, but then obviously for the straights, I needed to be as fast as I could. But I don't know if you saw it, but yeah, coming into the last 3 corners, it actually coughed on me, and I had to clutch it into the corner, and I managed to get through the cough and just get enough to get to the line.
Well done on your third place. It was an absolute cracking battle. That pass around the outside into turn 4, or the first time around, was just unbelievable. So congratulations to yourself and to Lime Mitch as well. When he listens back on this, you guys had a great battle and gave us a lot to talk about throughout the night.
Yeah, props to him. He always gave racing room. We pretty much barely touched, so it was a wicked battle, and we always race like that. So it's I haven't been driving the best this year, but finally I've got it back onto the podium, so I'm happy about that.
Congratulations on your podiums tonight, Brenton Foley.
Thanks very much.
we'll go second place next, Steve Bolger. Steve, a pretty lonely race for you in the end. The closest you got to the battle for the lead was in the pit sequence, but very important for you, your main championship rival recorded a DNF, so that puts you in the box seat with 2 rounds left for the championship. Tell us a bit about how you feel about that.
First up, congratulations, Pete. Great drive. He was just untouchable today. I thought I could get near him in the pits. I was saving a bit of fuel in the first stint. And I thought I'd get close enough to put some pressure on, but as soon as we were out of the pits, he started pulling away again. And then that's not the way you want to extend your lead in the championship. So bad luck for him. But can't complain. I'm pretty happy.
Yeah, does that change your mindset a bit when you see your main rival have a really bad night like that? Does that change your mindset for the rest of the race?
I certainly dropped off because I didn't realize he was out to probably halfway through the first stint, and I sort of just backed off, and mine started drifting a little bit. But I certainly wasn't pushing too hard for the win because I just couldn't keep up with Pete with, even if I was pushing at 11 tenths. So I just backed off and managed the gap to third.
Yeah, fair enough. Now with the late track change, you did. I heard from a few people that you were struggling a little bit in your first few laps around the track. What do you think of the Istanbul Park circuit? How did you manage learning the track as well as trying to put those lap times in for the race?
Yeah, I didn't find I had any problems getting used to the track. I've driven it before in F1, which are not so recently, but so the track wasn't new to me. But they're a bit different in these cars, and I think I didn't set her up for the tyres too well, so got a decent 1 lap pace out of it. But towards the end of the stints, they were really struggling.
Fair enough. Congratulations on your second place this evening.
Cheers, mate.
And finally, our race winner, Peter Savage. Peter, an absolutely unbelievable race from you. Peter perfect tonight. Unbelievably consistent, unbelievably fast, and in the end took home a race win by over 10 seconds. Congratulations.
Yeah, cheers. I have not stopped smiling since I crossed the finish line. I don't know what happened, but tonight I was able to get in the zone and did that ridiculous lap in quali that I did not know I had. And then in the race, I just pushed really hard in the first few laps, got away and just started fuel saving. Made sure I could make it to the end of the race doing a 1 stop like everyone else because the Merc was a little bit weird with fuel. And yeah, for the whole race, I was just always looking forward, always had full concentration and just didn't make a mistake because I enjoyed that.
Yeah, I can tell. You certainly sound like you enjoyed it. What's it like? We've heard from Nether, I think that you've been slowly making gains in the supercars as well, and now in the GT3. Do you really feel like you're beginning to come into the fore of AMS Oz, that you're starting to become one of the feared drivers?
I'd really like to be known as a feared driver, but still got a little bit to go. I have started getting quicker in a lot of cars, but I haven't been able to find consistency, especially in the V8s with those quick times. But I've had brilliant people like Lewis Wedding, who has helped me with tunes a lot. I've had Devonish show me a few things about the game that's improved my times. They've really helped me along with anything I have a problem with, and it's really starting to show.
Yeah, exactly. As I said tonight, you were Peter Perfect. So I think that's your first win for AMSL's GT3. With 2 rounds left in the series, do you reckon you can have a crack at another one?
Yeah, I would definitely like to take them out. I'm definitely going to have confidence from tonight. I reckon I'll do really good at Watkins Glen, but I do not know about Monza. I've been very, very inconsistent at that track, but I will practice and really try to stick it to the top guys.
Awesome. Congratulations once again on your race victory tonight.
Thank you.
That's the top 3 from this evening. Peter Savage, Steve Bolger, and Brendan Foley. Nether, what a cracking race.
What a cracking race with some unexpected twists and turns along the way, and the biggest one, of course, being the second lap exit for Will Devonish. It puts a huge dent in his championship charge for the World Challenge or the World Series rather, this year. 43 points is the deficit remaining with 2 races to go. So 2 3/4 race wins, essentially. He needs a lot of luck to go his way to take this fight down to the last race of the season. Brenton Foley's third place sees him 30 points clear of Xeris, now in third place on the championship standings. We did say keep an eye out for Pete Savage. He has vaulted up the order. He was outside the top 12 on our points graphic earlier tonight. He's vaulted up to 7th overall with 48 points, one more, believe it or not, than team principal Lewis Wedding. So Lewis would probably be secretly thinking about getting back out there for Monza, I think, judging by that. He probably want to right that wrong very, very quickly. And there's still a couple of other nice little battles shaping up in that top 12 point standings as well. Termo has slipped a little bit. He's now finds himself level on 40 points with Aaron Thomas. In actual fact, you look at the point standings and where they've finished over the course of the season so far, Aaron Thomas is actually ahead by virtue of his 4th place finish tonight, and that's the only thing separating them. But still a little bit to play for. Pete Savage was right. The next place we visit is Monza. 90 minutes, the 16th of June. The place that has caused so many incidents of chaos. It doesn't matter whether it was WEC, GT3, Porsche Cup in seasons gone past. It has always created some sort of drama. So when Pete says he's not looking forward to Monza, I don't blame him. There are probably a number of drivers that are probably not looking forward to it either.
No, you got to be all about the cathedral of speed. You got to the Tifosi. The Lamborghini's going to be strong there. Of course they will be, because it's all straight lines. But I might be surprised to see maybe the BMWs again if Aaron Thomas and Lime Mitch are able to get some practice in using that speed advantage that the BMWs tend to have. Might see them have a good result at Monza, because again, it is just all about speed over in Medina.
It certainly is. And then the one that he mentioned that he was looking forward to, Watkins Glen, that's the 2-hour finale. That brings the season to a close on the last day of the June month, the 30th of June. So that'll close out the GT3 World Series over the course of the next 4 weeks. He also mentioned the supercars is something that he drives in as well. Supercars is the next time we go racing here on the Outworld Broadcast Channel. That's what we will be bringing you, and it is the Calder Twin Sprint from Calder Park Raceway. It was a very, very popular event last year, despite the fact that we didn't have a huge turnout, but enormously popular amongst the drivers that did turn up. So it was so nice, we decided we had to do it twice. So twice in 2 years, that track comes up as a substitute this time around. Upcoming in the world of AMS Oz, Super 2s on Friday night. Lewis Wedding's going to bring you that one from the Loose 89 channel. We mentioned before, Hamilton is the venue. The first time that any form of racing in AMS Oz has driven on the Hamilton street circuit. That is going to be a car killer for sure if you get that one wrong. Concrete walls everywhere and not a lot of runoff to go with it. Track Day Challenge is in the process of winding up over the next couple of weeks. Queensland Raceway is the next venue, so for those guys that are competing in that, that's when you need to make sure you're available for the 8th of June. Likewise, TCR Oz, there's only 2 rounds to go for that. Hidden Valley and Sandown are the last 2 rounds, and Hidden Valley comes up next Tuesday. And then next Wednesday, season finale for TCAC, Michael, Pukekohe Park Raceway, before the non-championship Enduro gets underway, not too long after that.
Yeah, TCAC has been a really fun series to commentate on. I do that with good mate Chris Riddell. And yeah, the finale at Pukekohe Park, which is, of course, Kiwi Chris's home track as well. So he's very excited to bring that to you. But the series, because of the success penalties, has really brought the field closer and closer together. And the last few rounds of that have been absolutely off the walls in terms of drama, in terms of action, in terms of competition. So it will be a really exciting way to finish off the season at Pukekohe, which is a really cool track. And I'm very much looking forward to that next Wednesday.
And the one thing that we haven't had a chance to get a slide together for is the successor to TCAC that follows on after that season is over, and that of course is in my mind it's the Group A cars, but it's the ATCC mod is what it's been branded. So again, another series that has had a hugely popular turnout in terms of registrations and is actually full, so you can't get on to race in that series, but you can definitely still watch it on the Short Shift Motorsport podcast channel when that gets up and running. Don't forget to, as we said before, Gt3 Sprint Series not too far away from getting up and running at the conclusion of the World Series. Dates for those races are yet to be released, but it won't be too far away. We forgot to mention too, there is the opportunity for drivers to swap cars if you do think that your car is not up to scratch, that you want to go something that's a little bit different. You're more than welcome to change between seasons. Also, don't forget the Porsche Cup. The registrations are still open. Still a very good field in there for the moment, but could always do with some more drivers in that particular realm. And of course, don't forget our friends over at ARW getting their season number 9 underway starting tomorrow night. Michael, thanks for joining me. I know it's been interesting just having the two of us tonight. Bit of an interesting, different dynamic, but get well soon to Bagsy. Hopefully he's watching along or he watches this back a bit later, but we'd love to see him back in the box next time out.
Yeah, it is a bit of a shame that we had to do just the dynamic duo tonight, but I've had an absolute lot of fun. The battles between Lime Mitch and Foley, and then Thomas and Ozrob, and even down to the tail end of the top 10. A big shout out to Burko, Termo, and Joyner for their battle at the tail end of the top 10. Just absolutely outstanding stuff, and I've had an absolute ball tonight.
And I'm the same. So we'll leave it right there. As always, please drive safely. We'll see you next time. Bye for now.